Grand night. Take these off. Can I see the glare? I've embodied the whole look with the hat. But tonight, we get into these vampires. Let the drums fill the space real quick as we let the room fill up. As I tip my camera to myself a little bit more. Pulling in a little bit more like that right there. Let the room fill up. Oh, I hate when I get smoke in my eye. As you come in, drop that ashe over in the comments so I know you in here. Got a lot we're going to discuss tonight. Got a lot we got on the topics. We're going to talk about the types of energy theft so we can have a better understanding of what an energy vampire is. Like a lot of times we get stuck on what an energy vampire is and we don't understand the characteristics of how they feed. Like the same aspect of saying that the white man is your oppressor and not understanding that it's based upon anything outside of you is based upon the behavioral, it's based on the intellectual, the understanding of you. So something such as you as yourself, you are the receiver to the energy in your power source. You are the receiver. So one thing that we get stuck on by not thinking that we are the receiver of such power, we're that energy, we're that power source. The thing that we don't look at is how energy theft happens in the first place. How energy theft, the better way to understand, as I always say, is like coming into the understanding of how to defeat something is understanding how it works. So like when I say the thing about an oppressor, you saying that the white man is your oppressor and you're being oppressed. What is it oppressing you from? And if it was created, and I had this thought earlier before I went into meditation. Here's something to think about. If something was created, we know the stories about our ancestors. Like you go through the ancestors, you look at the books, the Hermetic texts, you study about. I cannot think of them at this moment. The ones that created the races, split them up, the Tamahus and the red, yellow, and if they were created for a certain purpose, and they were given their behaviors. Here's the one thing this is going to be one of those things to make you say, If in mindset, in intellectual thought process, you were told to go home, and you're not from here, you're from a different space. You're not from here, you're from a different, this is where you came. We understand that coming to this realm, this is the realm we had to learn everything from. We understand it's the prison realm. So take the thought process of that. If you want something, and then we have this thought where we get stuck on, they took our planet, we're so stuck on what they took from us, we don't realize that they didn't take anything. How can something go somewhere or not own something or not be a part of something when it was created in the 3D realm? All the text that I've read and I read and I go over and I went over today before the night's lecture, I thought about it. Took deep thought about it, had deep channels about it. If they were created in the 3D realm and they don't exist, Bobby Hemmett, Phil Valentine, they've all explained this. If they were created in the 3-dimensional plane, they were created in the 3-dimensional plane, which means this physical plane. And the 4D is our mind, and the 5D is everything in the spiritual realm going above. How can you take ownership if you're not from this space? Energy theft. I'm gonna speak on spirit hit me real hard. I wrote down the notes. I usually don't write down notes, but I wanted to get these points out first before we get into the lecture. Types of energy theft. The intimidator. Take all these into account as we go throughout the lecture. The intimidator takes energy by threat, forces people to pay attention by fear. The interrogator steals energy by judging and questioning others. Makes others feel inferior by finding faults in others. That's the interrogator. Aloof gets energy by acting coy and playing hard to get. Often acts clueless. Tells redundant stories even though you've heard or you were there. You were actually there. And then my favorite, the poor me. Takes energy by making others feel guilty. Complain about problems and rarely states solutions. Those are the 4 main archetypes of energy theft. The simplest understanding of we looking at that when we think about energy theft, just looking at the intimidator forces people to pay attention by fear. We think about the church. We think about politicians. We think about a lot of things outside of us on an external level. We think about the things externally that intimidate us, that have us gripped by fear. When it comes to the interrogator and they steal the energy by judging others, you have to understand. Last week, remember, we went into thought forms. And it was very important that I went into thought forms on inception because it leads into the night. When you think about an energy vampire, they need something from you that they do not have. When you think about the whole mythos about vampires need your blood because they do not have the plasma, or they do not have the components within their blood to survive. So they need your blood in order to thrive. So when you think, now we got to go out of that and go into the aspects of mentally, when we're talking about into the occult and the metaphysical of the spiritual aspect, at this level, remember I've already said, based on the Gnostic text, based on the Hermetic text, based on these texts, this level is built to be fed and to feed for exploitation upon your addictions. So we look at that aspect like that. Put that aspect into your mind. As you coming in, yell at Ashe so I know you in. But take that aspect into your mind of what an energy vampire is. We all look at it based on the mundane level of anybody that has a negative attitude, or they always seem to feed off of something that you are, they seem to feed off something that you are, or something, they need something from you. Ultimately, in case in point, an energy vampire, these energies need something from you. Or these carbon bases need something from you. So take that into the aspect. So when I'm thinking about energy vampires, the same way that I come into my education and my hypothesis when I'm building, I think about the very first people, or the first person that, and I broke this down in the podcast, the first person that indoctrinated you, the first person that gave you information based on when you came into this realm, and you were slipping, when you were coming into this realm and you were your identity and your ego was being created, is the same person that is feeding from you based on your identity. We have to step out of the aspect of our identity. Our identity houses our ego. Our identity houses any conduit that was used in sustaining a belief. Our identity sustains anything that was within the conduit of the beginning of our belief. As we came in, our ego is built upon that. So in order to understand how you're being fed upon, you got to understand where the feeding started. for yourself. The one thing that I see a lot of times when I do the consults and I'm doing a lot of building in an overall sense, is that the same narrative. A lot of people come with that same narrative and that same thought process or that same ideal, speaking on the aspect of something's oppressing them, something stopping them. But it's on that poor me energy theft. It's on the poor me thought process. We've been oppressed. We were prisoners of war. And the same aspect, until you understand what it was and how it came into play and how it plays out, you can't change it. It's similar to if someone tells me, but we were slaves, that doesn't compute with me, because in my mind, in my mentality, we were prisoners of war. We were prisoners of war that we did not know we were at war with. We were prisoners of war. So after I programmed that into my mind of saying, oh, we were prisoners of war, we were prisoners of war, we were prisoners of war, after saying that so many times, my mind slipped from the slave. So it slipped from that victim code. So I slipped into, I was a prisoner of war. So when I came open into looking at understanding our history from our ancestors, kings, queens, warriors, that opened to me. We have to step out of this aspect of being the slave, being the oppressed, we have to step out of this mindset of being the oppressed, being the slave, being the one held down. We have to step out of that mindset, because everything we understand that mentalism, the universe is all in the universe. The mind is all in the universe is mental. We understand this law, but when we come into understanding these laws of our universe, of us, we need to actually start applying them. So if the mind is all that the mind is all in the universe is mental, which means understanding that everything that I think I create, therefore becomes my environment. Why would I put into my mind that I was oppressed? Why would I keep into my mind that I am oppressed, that I am downtrodden? Why would I keep myself in that mindset? Keeping myself in that mindset, all it's going to do is keep me stuck in the fundamental intellectual thought, searching in observational defense for something for me to defend my oppression, to defend myself from. Observational defense and observational offense. Observational defense puts me in a mind frame, in a position to, when I look for things, I'm looking for things to defend upon. I'm looking for things I'm looking for things that fit the fundamental, the things that I've already taken in based on knowledge. And that's what I'm going to defend myself against. So if I have the mindset that I'm oppressed, I must constantly be in defense from an oppressor. If I'm constantly keeping myself in the mindset that I'm owed something, I'm only going to defend myself to be owed something. We have to switch our mindsets, and that's the nest. If you look at Supernatural, you look at any movie talking about vampires, and they talk about a nest, that's where the vampires feed. That's where the vampires have found this place to feed. You put yourself into a position of a vampire, of energy vampire, without even knowing it, because you don't know what an energy vampire actually looks like. We have to get out of this mindset. One mindset that I noticed was a lot was getting out of for a lot of the times was the aspect of our skin folk and kinfolk. The aspect of kinfolk and skinfolk and kinfolk. Everybody black isn't black and everybody white isn't white. Bobby Hemmett broke that down a lot. Everybody that black isn't black and everybody that isn't white. So we have to get out of this mindset of being this color anyway. Because we're still stuck in the fundamental aspect, because if I'm a god, I have no color. When I came down to this level, understanding that I have a soul, That's my consciousness, my soul, my eternal you is a light body and it absorbs light. As I come down to this level, of course, I get darker. So understanding at this level, to break away from this level, from this realm, you got to take your mindset out of thinking like, oh, we got to be strong and black and powerful. You already did that part. One thing that I came into notice, the one thing that I've come into the understanding of, the civil rights movement did what they were supposed to do. Why are you repeating it? We get stuck in this aspect based on sentimental value, thinking that we're still in that space because we're mentally still in that space. We get stuck based on sentimental, intellectual values that we're still in a space because we're still in a space.
Battery low.
As I turn off my speaker, that's making all that noise. But we put ourselves in this space of understanding, like, I'm in a space. Oh yeah, tonight's lecture is brought to you by Black Water. Very, very great water. Anyway, but taking that aspect of understanding where we're at, we cannot continuously keep ourselves in this mindset, in this setting that we are oppressed. Because they're giving you examples of you're not oppressed in the media. They're giving you examples that you're not oppressed. But this is that both sides of the coin. They play both sides because all they understand is conflict. So if I continuously show you stars and entertainers and basketball players, my mindset's going to say they got to where we need to be at financially. They got to where we need to be at materialistically. So why don't they speak up for us? And understand, you have to separate from the entire aspect of humanity. This hoping that something outside of you is going to save you, this hoping something outside of you is going to take you to the next level, it's not going to happen. Let's take the thought process like this. If everybody is in an agreement of a thought process that there's nobody going to save you, how in the same sentence are you waiting for somebody to save you? If nothing can save you, how can in the same thought process you think something's going to save you? You need a leader. You need someone to lead the fight. You need someone to lead a revolution. When we were told over and over and over again, the revolution will not be televised. Just think about we have to think about these aspects of these phrases. The revolution will not be televised. And then later on, we're like, damn, the mind is old and everything's mental. That's what he meant by that. This is how we go back into the past and understand the context of what they were speaking. Because at a time in that space, nobody was privy or open to that information, this knowledge that we have now. Just like I looked at a Bobby Hemmett lecture the other day, and it was the which one was it? It was one where he was in Charlotte, but he said something about the flu. He said he was talking about the flu and diabetes, and how in 2001, and I went and did the research. In 2001, the flu cases were at a low because they didn't have any of the shot to give out. They ran out of the vaccine. They ran out of some key components of the vaccine, so they couldn't give out the vaccine. So in that thought process, I'm sitting there thinking, here it is 2020 or 2012, according to the Mayan calendar, and the Ethiopian calendar is 2012. And we're looking, and we're on lockdown because of this virus or something or other. So we are being intimidated, and our energy is being taken away. Our energy is being taken away by threat. The threats that we're putting on, curfews, quarantines, your energy is being taken away. No one can take your energy away unless you willingly allow it to be taken away. When it comes to a vampire, no vampire can enter. According to the mythos, you can watch fucking originals as an up-to-date reference. They can't enter your home until you invite them in. Not unless it's public domain. They cannot enter your home unless you invite them in. Here's the aspect of you thinking that you are Black in America or an African American. Everything's already been lined up. It's like, just like you look at the flu shot or you look at any vaccine has the components of the original disease within it. Any vaccine has the original components of the disease within it. So the flu shot has the flu in the other components. Any vaccine has the components of what the actual the disease is. Snake venom inside, rattlesnake venom, and all these, that aspect. So if I'm taking you by fear and I say it's quarantine, you cannot go out where you need to go out to, what are you going to do? You can sit there and get upset as hell. Man, they can't lock us up. They doing stuff with stimulus checks. They giving us money. I looked at it as, oh shit, they giving us money to stay the fuck home. What am I going to do with the money? If I get any monies, what am I going to do with it? My mindset is on something higher than that. All this time, you've been summoning. If we had our own economic base, if we had our own economic base, if we had this, if we had that. But it's based upon your ego, your identity. Your identity, who you are, is what locks you out from being what you could be. Your identity, based on who you are in this space, you want to be human, you want to be human, you want to be strong, Black, and proud, you want to be all these things. That aspect in your mindset, what you're doing, keeps you locked into the space that you're at. Because they know how to combat Black people. They know how to combat niggas. They know how to combat niggas. They know how to do that. They don't know how to combat gods. They don't know how to combat titans. They don't know how to combat higher spiritual intelligence because their ceiling is intellectual. They can't go any further than intellectual. They cannot go any further than where they've gone at this point. They can't go any further than intellectual. Anything outside of you. So where you're stopping at, because you're stuck in that space, this is how we get stuck in a space. We get stuck in this space based on we have our knowledge, we have our information, but we're not applying it. We get stuck in the love and hip hop in the reality TV aspect. We get stuck in a space. Think about this. How do you think that go on Netflix, look up Lock and Key. Go on Netflix, look up Lock and Key. Look up Lock and Key is a good one. That's the one I can think about right now. Look up Lock and Key right now. Now, don't look it up now because we having to talk. Look up Lock and Key. Look up any movie that has a metaphysical or an occult meaning to it. A true metaphysical. Chronicles of Riddick. Lock and Key. Lock and Key is a good one because it gives you the aspect of understanding that you need to go back into your childlike mind, that state of imagination, in order to create. Because it had the little kid, it had the little boy. I don't care about spoilers, but it had the little kid in there, the little white boy in there, Bryson, whatever his name was. But it had him in there, and he was the one that could find the keys at first, because he could hear them. I ain't protecting the keys. He could hear the keys first, hear the sound for the keys, and know what each key meant. And then look at the mentalities. We have to get out of this aspect. This is why you're being fed upon. Because you're acting as a victim. The only way a predator can exist is if there's prey. The only way that an oppressor can exist if there's if there's an oppressed mindset. We have to think about the thought forms. The only way the thought form of a predator can exist is based on there's a thought form of being a victim. The only way that anything can exist, niggas ain't shit, bitches ain't shit, coons, and coons. The only way that it can exist in your life, in your environment, in your level where you're at, is if you're already in the thought form of that's what that is. We have to get out of the aspect of, I had my site on Facebook, and I was sitting there thinking, and I put a post up, and I remember I had a conversation with my uncle, and he was like, you never know you're on the right track, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing you're supposed to do until you have outside people till you have haters. I remember my uncle always told me that. So I made a post about the dark. You spend 9 months in the dark. When you think you're in the dark, when you dream you're in the dark, when you kiss you're in the dark. That I put that thought process in there with you being in the dark. And every Christian folk came through and laid their text on there and put their questions in there. Instead of me getting upset or defending, going into observational defense, I went to observational offense. The same thing that they could have done to my post, if they didn't want to see it, was hide it and block me. That way they ain't got to see what the fuck I'm talking about. But since their mindsets were stuck in observational defense, all they could see was an opportunity to defend their Jesus, to defend their archetype or their God, the one that they feed all of their energy to. That's all they had. They saw a chance to feed. All I did was went in there, long pressed on the comment. It pulled up my little thing. I put spam. I didn't even put hate speech. I put spam. I went up, it goes back up. I hit hide and hit block. Because there's no need for me to feed that space, to feed that thought form. There comes a time where you teach, that's when the student appears. This is where we get stuck at. We're trying to outreach our people, not knowing your people will show up to you when you're ready to. The student appears when the teacher is ready. The teacher appears when the student is ready. If the student appears when the teacher is ready, whoever's appearing in front of you is the one that's ready to be taught. You could drop the seed off, but to get into a back and forth with any of them, it does nothing. Because they're in observational defense and I'm in observational offense. Since I'm in observational offense, you okay. Being an observational offense, I can see the entire field. My defense is in place. If I have to open up a book, give out a book title, I can give out the book title. Read Adrian Broder's The Broader Files. Read The Black Science. Read this. Once you read these texts right here, then you can come back and we can have a conversation. Until you read these books right here, you can have a conversation with me. Until you've done the research that I've done, you cannot speak on what I speak. You cannot come to me with a conversation until you have came to an equal equivalence of what I went through. Have you studied your Bible? These are the questions. These are the questions that I ask. I ask more questions to them than I ask answers. Have you read your entire Bible? Have you read the Greek concordance? Have you read the concordances that give you the numbers and the aspects of understanding your Bible? Have you read the Book of the Dead or the Book of Life? Because we're going to break that shit now. It's not the Book of Death, it's actually the Book of Becoming, because you're becoming a God. These are the aspects we got to start breaking out of. But take that aspect. Have you read this? Have you read this? And have you read this? Have you read these texts? If their answer is no, keep moving forward. If their answer is yes, then their answer will never be yes. Their answer will never be yes because if it was yes, they wouldn't come to you where they came to you. They come to you based on, everything comes to you based on a reflection to a conflict that's already internal. Everything happens to you and comes to you based on a conflict that's on the internal. Everything will test you based on internal mechanisms within your own mind, in your own subconscious, in your own underworld that you have not dealt with yet. That's why the white man can do what he does and says he's going exactly to the script that you gave him. When he was created, he was given his behaviors and given his tasks. He was given his papers. Here, this is what you're supposed to do. They're living out their end of their script. We get stuck on we're in the script. We need to fight against them. How are you going to fight against something that has an intellectual advantage over you? They've had all of your information. They have all of your information. Whether they act aloof, whether they interrogate, whether they intimidate, whether they act aloof or act poor me. Let's look at that poor me aspect. Every time you talk about slavery, there's always going to be that white Irishman. There's always going to be that white Polishman or that white Irishman or that Jew is going to throw in, I was a slave too. I was a slave in Egypt. I was a slave in Germany. They're always going to be able to combat you based with the same intellectual understanding. But if you say you were a prisoner of war, what war were they fighting? What documentation of what war were they fighting? We have to take ourselves out of the aspect. When you're defeating something that's sucking off of your energy or draining off of your energy, we have to be able to question it without emotion. This is about becoming emotionally balanced. On your lower half, your survival, I always go through this, your survival, your pleasure and your pain, and your power are all derived from the same source. So if my source of power is going off being oppressed, everything that I need has to feed my oppression. Even though in my mind, I'm thinking I'm getting far ahead, but you ain't done shit. Because you're stuck in the mindset of your ancestors, of the ones that came before you, carrying on their legacy. We're not carrying on the legacy. When we get stuck on carrying this legacy, legacy means energy. I carry on the energy of my ancestors. I carry on the energies of my lower self. The things of my lower that once I understood why I did it, why I was based upon that survival, why I was based upon that level, when I take myself into the aspect of, I need to be doing more, I need to put myself into a higher aspect, I need to understand what I did when I was lower. I had to understand what little Charlie was doing and why he didn't speak up. I had to understand why little Carlos was sitting back and didn't know what he spoke up. I had to understand that's the only way that I can unlock Papa Lucy. That's the only way I can become the God called Alchemist. Because I fully understood where I came from in understanding those aspects. And I'm still going through those aspects. We get stuck on the sentimental values of where we were at. We were kings, we were queens. So you're not a king and a queen anymore? You have to understand, when you say whatever you speak comes into existence. So if I continue to say that I was a king, I was a warrior, I was a priest, as I go through my Akashic records, and I think about everything that I was, if I keep going through all the shit that I was, I will never get to where I need to be. Because in order to be aware, that means I have to go back and regain that consciousness. I got to regain that level. I got to regain being a warrior. I got to regain being a king. I got to regain being a priest. I got to regain being an alchemist. I got to regain being an occultist. I got to regain all these aspects of myself. You shut down the initiation system. You shut down your ability. You shut down your steps to be initiated. Because you're stuck on the human thought. The human thought will always be the past. The human thought will always be the past. Because coming into your consciousness, you will leave your humanity behind. So if you still have a human thought, you're in the past. You look for things in the past. You look for something to come to you in the aspect of feeding your ego, because you're not feeding your higher self. You're stuck in the aspect of something below you still pulling you down. We're still being pulled down. We're still being held back from what? And this is going outside of the parameters. Remember, it's that as above, so below aspect. So if I'm working on myself up here, getting my house in alignment up here, my mental and everything up here, everything falls into place. Ashe. Everything falls into place from the mental. If it all starts in the mind, in the physical, it all starts from that spiritual, that astral, that spiritual realm. And we come down into this aspect of us down here in this level, on the physical level. If my psyche isn't right, if my psychological aspects of my mind, my mentality is damaged, and I'm still holding on to old programs, old paradigms, then how can I create anything new on this plane? If my mindset is stuck within the old paradigms that are programmed into my subconscious, being oppressed, being held back, all these thoughts, how can I create anything new? And what can feed upon me? Why can't I feed upon it? How are the things that happen right now in this moment in fucking period in time when it comes to these oppressors and all these white men and all this, the white man is the devil? Half of this shit that they're saying, I feed upon on a daily basis. The coronavirus, fed upon it. I'm feeding upon the fucking coronavirus right now because I have deeper understanding that the coronavirus and what it is. I understand what the coronavirus is. I have an understanding. I am open to all of the information so I can gain on that text what it is. At this level, it's just a distraction. It's the same play out that they always play out. On the higher level, I'm understanding, well, Beetlejuice that's exploded. Beetlejuice is sending this energy down. The star Beetlejuice from Orion's belt is coming down. So I'll take that aspect. That's that new energy. I remember when I was listening to and I read the books about everything's without, so within. I remember Bobby Hemming saying whatever happens out there in the universe is happening here. Then I go into the aspects of what I've learned and what I read on that aspect of understanding, and I'm like, I just got new energy. It's the same thought process when they keep you locked into a mindset based on distractions. I give it to you like this. I ain't walked outside with a mask on yet. I ain't walked outside with a mask on yet. I'm not going to walk outside with a mask on. I don't feed the thought form of someone's going to catch something because my mindset's not in that space. This is how you see where you're testing where your truth is at. If you're standing on your truth or not. If you're a god, you're a goddess, you're a titan, you're a higher level being, your truth gonna get tested. This is one of those tests. Remember, it goes from physical to mental. The higher you go up, the higher the test in your body of work. Where your first step, everything's gonna be on that mental level, but the things that test you will be on the physical constraint, based on your urges, based on what you subject yourself to, based on where you go, but it's based on mentality. I'm used to going over here, so I'm gonna keep going over there. I'm used to doing this, so I'm gonna continue doing this. You put yourself in these mentalities and you stay stuck in that space. And then you allow the energy vampires to feed. I said it in the greenhouse of mirrors. I said it in the greenhouse of mirrors. I've said it in a couple of lectures. You are the conduit of the energy vampire. You become the conduit of the energy vampire. I hope and I pray no nothing come at me. I hope, and I hope, and I hope. I wish and I wish and I wish. When you keep making wishes that you get a leader and you get something, you become stuck to the jinn thought form. When you're hoping and hoping and hoping, you get attached to the thought form connected, the deity connected to that thought form that they brought to this level. So if you put yourself in the thought form that the white man is the devil, is a demon, guess what you put your mind frame and your thought process into? Anything that goes into the aspects of, I don't care how much information you take in, you can understand that the first primordial energy broken down was soot or set. When we talk about from the Kemetic text, we talk about set, and that was the archetype where they brought the devil from. So if I sit here and put in my mind that the white man is the devil, I am unconsciously programming into my mind whenever I read anything about set, any primordial energy, they become a part of that energy. This is how they feed. They feed because you let them in. As you let them in, that's how they feed. You let them into your house. They're still in your mind. If it's on your mind, it's in your house, therefore it can feed. So if I put the thought process that the white man is the devil, and I understand every archetype of the devil is the lower aspect, even if I look at the aspect of the Bible, and I look at the lower aspect to talk about the lower three chakras is the worldly pleasures, and that's all the devil can control, is the lower aspects of myself, and I understand hell is the lower aspect of myself. It doesn't matter what the fuck book I read, how powerful I think that I am. When it comes to the test of a white man standing in front of me, I'm gonna be like, oh shit. See him being oppressed. I gotta pay attention to the white man. I'll be walking around like the your boy Dr. Umar Johnson talking about sitting in a fucking park, sitting there talking about, hold up, wait. The European, I got some Europeans circling the prince. I don't have to pull out the shotty. I'll become oblivious and a fucking slave to my ego. Why let in something that you don't understand? That's the whole aspect. Think about it. They let you in and you didn't understand some shit. They followed and studied you forever in every aspect, and they sat back, let you give them their emotions, but we understand their base behavior is always devolved from the sense of anything higher. They can't do anything spiritual. So if I take that aspect and I think about, I read about when they first started introducing the Bible in the when our ancestors were the prisoners of war, and how they had the white man sitting in there watching them doing they were getting the spirit and they were getting the Holy Ghost. But then I look back and I watch a movie like I watch a movie like Sugar Hill. I watch a movie that's what movie I watched the other day? I watch a movie like The House on Skull Mountain, and I understand the aspects of the energy and how that shit works. And I understand that the same archetype when they're saying Catholics, and I remember the voodoo rites, and my grandmother taught me the voodoo, was teaching me some voodoo rites, and she still teaches me to this day through channels. And I think about the aspect of where I'm at, and I look at the Virgin Mother. The Virgin Mother is the manifested archetype that they put Arzuli behind. And I remember that in plain sight, our ancestors, since we want to talk about ancestors and elders, the ones that came before us, they never stopped looking at the aspects of understanding what it was based on where they were at to keep a hold on to what the fuck they are. And they took that aspect and you take the saints, and behind the saints, and you look at Psalms, and you look at the saints, and from all the saints are all in synonymous with the Orishas. They're all in synonymous with the Congo rites. They're all synonymous with all our ancient traditions. So just for me to sit here and say, fuck the Bible, fuck Jesus, every one of my ancestors, every bit of energy that they invoked into those writings, I lose focus and don't look at it. I can't find it. So I allow myself to be aloof and out in the air and just allow myself to be fed upon because I have nothing to hide behind. This is the aspect where we get stuck at, hidden in plain fucking sight. We get hidden in plain fucking sight because we're not hiding behind anything. The aspect, we get stuck on the physical image archetype. Fundamentally, we're stuck on the physical image archetype of trying to prove something. Their arrogance, I said this before, their arrogance is our way out. Why would you repeat their arrogance? Why would you repeat their arrogance? They can go put on a suit. You become what you hate. Till this day, I have never seen, till this day, the only class or the only archetype that dresses in the aspect of appropriating our culture. When you talk about the culture, appropriating our style of dress, our style of speech, our style of everything that we do, they do it. And they'll always do it better. Here's the reason that they'll always do it better. Because they own 90% of what the fuck you want to wear. Here's a thought before we get even deeper. As a god, you create. As a god, as a goddess, whatever archetype. God is a goddess. Alchemist as a cultist, you create, you study, you create. What have you created for yourself as you've aligned? Let's get out of the question. Have you got yourself in alignment to yourself? What have you created that can sustain your survival and longevity as long until you transition that you can study? What have you put together besides, and this is where a lot of the thought process come from, what have you embraced in full? You hate something so much, that's when you become it. You must submit yourself to the attributes of the ideals of that, whatever it is, in order to learn it, to understand it. What I've understood, what I've gained in understanding, so I don't get fed upon by the white man, is their behaviors are based upon intellectual. I think this, I believe that, I believe you not. I don't think that's a good idea. They always say they're thinking some shit. In their thoughts, their arrogance goes to I know. But it's always a theory. This is what we've been taught ever since grade school. So if I take that thought process, like, damn, that's okay, cool, that's what it is. So taking that tidbit of information, I know as long as they have the information in front of them, they're always going to have the information. The intelligence, the conduit, the eternal you, the soul to create and move that, they won't never have. The only way they can get it is they get a peace of mind. The only way they can get any of my energy is if I allow them to get my energy. If I allow myself to negatively, if there was an internal mechanism in me that needed their approval or needed their attention, I would do anything for their attention. Let's take let's go back to observational defense and observational offense. And this is one of the things that I do teach when I do my do services. Blood orange ginger. Take the aspect of, okay, cool. Let's step into a space. You go to your job. If you have a job, you work for somebody, you work for yourself. Even in the aspect of working for yourself. So you work for yourself or you work for somebody else. You go into your job. Let's go further back. We're going to paint a picture real quick. take it that you're walking, you have to walk to your job. Your job is 20 minutes away by car. The bus will take you about 45, and a walk could take you about an hour and a half to get to your job. But by car, it's 20 minutes. All right, cool. So you can't depend on anybody for a ride. You trying to save up money, so you ain't trying to use a Lyft or an Uber or a bus route. You didn't even think about the bus route. You think that's beneath you. And you're taking your walk to work. On your way to work, since you're walking, you can see more. But you're in observational defense. Let's say you're a brother. And you walking down the street and you see two shorties in the car, sunroof open, their hair bouncing in the wind. Only thought that comes to your mind, occupational defense, or a thought that comes to your mind is, man, see, when I get my car, I can pull up beside shorty. I can pull up beside the shorties in the car and holler at them because I have a car. That's why I'm taking this walk. So you think about something you think about something worth the sacrifice, putting it in your favor. You keep walking down, see the bus go by, see everybody depressed on the bus. See, man, I can never be on the bus because everybody on the bus look depressed. So you thinking everybody on the bus is depressed. You thinking shorty, you're gonna go back thinking that shorty's in the car is gonna holler at you when you get the whip. You walking all the way to work. You finally get to work. No, you stop by the gas station or convenience store, corner store, whatever's on the block. You stop by there. Grab a bottle of water, grab yourself a Black and Mild, pack of Newports, whatever have you. Niggas love Newports. Grab your cigarettes. It's the only thing I'm worth sacrificing for. It's the only thing I'm gonna sacrifice for. I need this. I need this hit. So okay, you keep walking on the street. Finally get to your job. What did you do on observational defense? You absorb thought forms on every line of that level. You absorb thought forms on that level. Now you go to work. Now you in your job. Now you sweating. Motherfuckers are complaining. So you're already in the negative thought form, not even realizing that you're on negative because you didn't give no solutions to your problem. You're already in there, so you're around negative energy. I'm just trying to get home, just trying to get my hours to go to work, trying to get my hours to go to the house. Now you're in that nest. Now everything is feeding upon your energy because you're in a negative aspect. Because you put yourself in negative aspect before you even got there. Before you even got to the level you needed to go to, that you're about to grab, that you're at, you put negative thought. You already connected to negative thought forms. Everything outside of you gave you more favor to support where you're going. So you never thought you never thought about prosperity. You never thought about abundance. And you never thought about wealth. You can't think about these things. You can't think about what you are when you're stuck in who you are. You can't think about what you are and what you will become if you're stuck in the identity of what you are mentally. That's about creating those light bodies. So if my mindset is still in my identity and everything that feeds my identity, I have to continue feeding this archetype of energy. It's just I'm feeding, or in this feeding space, keeping this shit alive. Everything that's at this level, in this realm, in this prison yard, can feed upon me. My job can tell me I cannot work. My job can tell me we got to cut your hours. My job can tell me, yo, we got to shut down because of the virus. Now my identity, I'm mad. The shorty I was dealing with, talking about I gotta have a job or she gotta find somebody that has more money. Now I'm mad at her. My mom can steady call me and tell me she need money for something. Family can tell me they need something. Now I'm mad at them. You only can be fed upon when you let the energy in. But the energy already has to be a part of you. It's the frequency. Their anger is already within you. Their anger and distress is already within you because you're already angry and distressed. So let's go further out and we'll come back in and we're going to get into the observational offense. That offense of that thought process. So when I'm looking at the white man, and the white man, you look at, you read the information, their mortality rate is higher than their birth rate. That means they're dying faster than they can be born, means they're dying off naturally. So I take that thought process like, damn, we are the originals. First come last and all that shit. Keep that thought in my mind. So that's already there and programmed into me. So I take that thought like, shit, that's already there. But I can't see it because I'm in observational defense. I still need them to be my oppressor. They still doing better than me. They're doing better than you based on an intellectual standpoint. Because your psyche has you locked into a space where you can't. Last week when I talked about your psyche got your subconscious locked so it can't open up and expand past where you're at. I can't take none of the shit here with me physically, but I can take everything around me mentally. Mentalism and human thought are the vexes for you rising into your higher self. That moral balance in your mind based on the tradition of your moralism is based off the traditionalism. Remember, they go hand in hand. I talked about that in the podcast. They go hand in hand. So if I sit here and I got the mindset of my people this, my people that, I'll be stuck on my people. I'll be stuck on my people. Every problem that my people have, they'll be able to use against me. The only way that I can shift that paradigm of myself is taking myself to the next level. I have to be willing to let go of what I fear of losing the most. I let go of the fear of what my mother would think of me. I let go of the fear of what anybody that wasn't on my path or that's not on my path was going to think of me. That took them out of my house. The only way that they can come back into my home, my dwelling, my temple, where my God self dwells, is if I let them back in. And the only way that they can get back in is if I'm still attached to the thoughts and the ideals of what I was based on my identity. Your mom is always going to remember you for pissing in the bed. Your mom is always going to remember you for your first break. Your mom is always going to remember you for the things that she remembered you by based on your life when you were being raised by her. All your exes are going to remember you for one good thing or one thing bad or with something other. They're going to remember you. All they can give you is the redundant story. And that's where that poor me aspect comes from. You still stuck on being oppressed? You still stuck on being held down? Go to your mother's house. How was you were oppressed, and this is you gotta get this aspect of understanding. You were oppressed by your mother unconsciously because now that you're in your conscious realm of yourself, in the generalized speaking, there's certain aspects that they live by and they thrive by. That were there those were learning points for you. But you think about the things that you shut down when you shut yourself down. Your ego becomes the intimidator. Based on your ego. Your ego becomes your intimidator based on what you think you wanted to know. Think about that time when you said, man, I can't wait to get out of my mom's house. Some people had to go back to their mom's house. Shit, I had to go back to my mom's house. Damn, man, I can't do everything I was doing I can't do everything I was doing outside my mom's house. So I can't go back there. But your mindset stuck on how your mother was able to give you certain things. So your mindset gets stuck on looking for a maternal figure unconsciously. Same thing for queens. You get it, certain motherfuckers get it at certain aspect. I need something as a fraternal figure to take care of me. If you had one. Or if your mother did this or what, even though, now let's go on the other end of that. I need something that was nothing like I need something that has unconsciously still on the same aspect. I need something that has a maternal vibe to it that I'm looking for. Because you didn't understand your mother in order to break away from the tether of what your mother was. You didn't break away from the tether of what your family member, what that family member represented at that point in time. So since you didn't break away from what your family member meant at that certain point in time, you didn't learn the aspects of that ideal, of that subject. You still don't like it. You still hate it. Transparency is the ability to look at both sides of that coin at the same time. I can look at both sides of the coin of what the good things my mother, the positive things my mother did in my life, and the negative things my mother did in my life. Both sets of things, the positives that serve me and the negatives that serve me. The positives that didn't serve me and the negatives that didn't serve me. The aspect of getting in balance of everything is understanding that on that line, they're on the same pole. So I need to understand that just because it was negative to me and it was positive to her, what I'm learning is the aspect of doing what I need to do to make something work for me in my favor. I'm separating from the thought process in tandem with, well, maybe if I do this, I'm never going to be like my mom. I'm never going to be like my dad. I'm never going to be like my people. For a while up till now, up until no one really ever met my people, I got to the aspect, I always had the aspect like, nigga, I'm adopted. I used to look, I'm like, I'm not, this cannot be my family. I'm adopted. Because they have no aspects or thought processes that I have. How am I the only one that came into consciousness? And I remember I looked about only certain people going, this is meant for the stronger. The black sheep of the family. We understand in black being from the original source. So that power is within that shadow. So everything that was done in that dark aspect is what's used to shape you. 1 second. Everything that was done in the dark was used to shape you. All the dark aspects that we don't talk about in family, or we don't want to gain understanding on, those are the things that are going to shape you. The touches, the theft, all them little aspects, those are the things that are being used to shape you into your strength of now. Those are the things that can be used against you. It only can be used against you if it's in the dark. Things can only feed upon you within the dark, because in the light you can see it. So if you're intimidated by the dark and you're happy with being in the light, you've been shifted to the light to be able to be seen. Because you shift into the light as a victim. The whole aspect of when you think about religion in that aspect, is you're always a negative antitone within the light. Come to the light if you're a sinner. And we understand not to take sin is the byproduct of ignorance, which means no knowledge. So come into the light if you're a sinner. Come into the light if you've been in the dark and you were a sinner. So now you sinned. Now you're in the light. It's all going to be covered in the light. No, it's in the light. Your knowledge is within the darkness. So if you're in the light, how can you go into the darkness? Just on that aspect right there. You in the light, you can be seen. Therefore, I have some. If I have the light on you, that means I can feed from you. When you think about the whole aspect of religion in that aspect, that's why motherfuckers stay in the light. Even when you listen, even in the context of what's being spoken during the time the motherfuckers say they're in the light. The whole aspect is to keep you based on the mindset of being unworthy of something. The mindset of something outside you is going to give you something as long as you stay within the light. As long as you stay in this, if you want this light, give you everything that you need. The only thing that's powering that light is you. Because if you ain't in the light, that's when the negative shit come out. Anyway. That's where the gossiping and the talking about people and the superiority complex and the poor me's and the what I say? The interrogator comes in. Who is your first interrogator? Unconsciously. Got to take ourselves out of the emotional aspect. Unconsciously, or sometimes consciously, when it gets even deeper, unconsciously, your mother, your father, whoever raised you, based on how they raised you, locked you into a set of bindings based on where you were at to survive in that space. They locked you up in light. They were the first interrogator in your life. The first one to ask you a bunch of questions. Why you come home late? The first interrogator. The first programmings were how you first got here when your identity was built. So until you understand the aspect of where it fucking started, for you can't go back and study the table of contents and even read the book on how it led up to them. This is how we do. We end up skipping spaces. Within those spaces, you create little darkness. Within those spaces of the dark, you try to keep leaping through light, and then you get stuck based on something can feed upon you there. Bust on the low and the mundane level of thought. Based on the mundane, you get that job, you ain't got to worry about that. That's the same aspect. That's the same thing your father. That's the same thing your father and your father's father was told. Work hard every single day. Work hard every single day. And it'll pay off. They'll give you a gold watch. You living out the same state. You're living out the indoctrination unconsciously of what your parents already went through. Or the one that came before you. You living in that space. When you attach to something outside of you, not realizing that it's inside of you, you must subject yourself to servitude. When you lock yourself to something outside of you, you subject yourself to servitude. The ultimate aspect, and not to be fed upon, is to become the predator. You weren't great, you are great. You weren't a king, you are a king. You weren't a queen, you are a queen. You have to initiate yourself into the space of what the hell you say you become. So when you start your path and you say, I'm a God, I'm a God, I'm a God, everything under the understanding of that level, and there's no level, everything on the understanding of that based on your mind, you gotta fill up the page. How do you fill up the page? That's when the knowledge comes in. As you attain the knowledge, you understand the alchemy and then you know how to create the product. You're getting stuck in this aspect, and that's how you get fed upon from an energy vampire. That's how you allow any of these blood-sucking leeches and all of these things to attach to you, because you're still stuck in the thought process of trying to prove yourself to something. Only thing you got to prove, validate, realize, have real self-realization with is with yourself. As long as you have the scholarship and the information, and you can say, yo, I got this from here, I got this from here, this is where I got my shit from, you can stand on your square. But you can't stand on your square if you're trying to prove it to somebody else. Drop the seed off. Drop the bag off. It's their decision if they want to eat or not. If they're hungry enough, they'll open the bag and they'll eat. If they're not, the food, it's not going to go away. It's going to go right back into the fucking ether. It's going to evaporate itself right back into the ether until somebody else is ready for it. Either way, you did your works. You did your job. As you're creating your body, becoming a God is bigger than this physical form. When we think about the field around us, our electromagnetic field around us, our aura, these fields around us, we have to fill these shits with light. From the dark comes light. So as you creating your light body, becoming larger, your voice gets stronger. Your heart gets harder. Your heart becomes more open. Your third eye opens up. Your crown starts to show. Your power base, so your root chakra is now activated in a way not of survival, but sustaining. Your solar plexus is not in the aspect of pain and pleasure. It's learning how to navigate what you sustain to empower it to feed your power source and for your heart to stand true to your heart. The knowing. Not the thinking, not the believing, not the hoping, not the fucking wishing. Those aspects of what get you locked into yourself where you're not making any other fucking moves. You will shut yourself down in the safety of humanity. You'll shut yourself down because somebody can tell you that they love you in some way, shape, or form. When in reality, based on the humanity aspect, if they truly loved you, love in the total body of that energy, when that energy hits you, when that entity comes into you, it tears apart everything that is not at that frequency. That's why when you meet certain people on your path, they challenge everything that you thought you knew. They challenge everything that you thought, that you believed in, that you were subjected to. They challenge all of that. They challenge friends, they challenge family. And the stronger that individual is, the stronger their influence in pressuring you to like, damn. They make you see yourself in the way that you needed to see yourself. Negative before positive. Motherfuckers will challenge your ego. My whole purpose when I teach, when I do services, when I'm consulting, I'm challenging your ego. I'm switching your ego from observational defense to observational offense. I'm switching you from the defensive being fed upon to the aspect of understanding how to feed from the energy. Observational offense. Observational offense is the act of when I walk into a room, I can see everything in that room and see how I can see where it's at. A movie to watch, it ain't really a metaphysical movie. Carlito's Way, the first one. Not the prequel with Diddy. I'm talking about the original one with Al Pacino. Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. He says a line in there where he says, my mind's angling like crazy, trying to make everything fit. Observational offense is when you're angling every basic scenario. You've already taken in a scenario in your mind and created a scenario to fit that space. You take this aspect into yourself that you create the scenario, the visual in your mind, for your mental, for every situation that you can fucking fathom. The only way you can do that is when your psyche isn't bruising your ego in the way. Your ego is what makes you say never. Your ego is I can never. Your ego is based upon your morality and your traditionalism. I can never do this. I will not do that. I can't do this. I can't. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I shouldn't. It isn't about doing it in the physical. It's about doing it in your mentality and seeing what you would do in your mental. How would you sustain if you had to do it? That's how you defeat it. Until you do that, you'll be like, oh, I never could do that. Oh, I can't understand that. Because you cannot subject yourself to the attributes of the ideal to gain deeper understanding. So you'll look at shit back and forth. Motherfuckers look at people that eat meat and gay people, and they're synonymous with white people and Arabs and Arabs and all this shit. So you shut your mind off from the aspect of, I'm the original, so I was here first. First one that got dropped down here. Why did I get dropped down here? To learn something. I got dropped down here to learn something. I know that. What I need to learn from. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Morality has me in that aspect. Morality and traditionalism have me looking in observational defense. I don't understand that, so I don't like it. So I got to build that up. Observational offense allows me to look at white supremacy for what it is. Supremacy based on the light. Remember, last week I broke down, when you think about the aspect based on the intellectual, they can't really understand the intelligence. So when they say the pure race, they're talking about the light of this race, sustaining the light. Anytime they're talking about something pure, they're talking about sustaining the pure light that is in their race, the pure body of light, the pure body of work that is their race. So when I study that and I look at white supremacy, they're just trying to sustain that light. My darkness challenges that light in the physical. So if the darkness challenges their light in the physical, what about in the mental? If all they can do is give me physical shit because they're from a 3D, they're from this space, that would mean in my mental, in my observational offenses, everything they're going to do is going to try to keep me locked down in physical shit. Because everything they do is based on physical. Think about money in that aspect. It's their physical manifestation or understanding of what currency is or what energy is. They need money for shit to work in. So they need that type of energy. How do they create alchemy? They can't do anything. They cannot do anything spiritually or alchemically to the level. They need a power source. So as long as you're here, ever since being prisoners of war, that was one of the first wars, being that prisoner of war aspect. And then you think about, we built this country. Yeah, energy built this country. You were the power source plugged in for this country to be built upon. But looking at the deeper aspect, in order for a space to survive or sustain, it must continue with the same properties that help it to sustain itself. So if I'm sitting in a space and I know what this realm was built upon, I know what America was built on, how can I expect anything more from this space? How can I expect anything more from this space if it was built upon conduits of my power? And the only way that they sustain my power is by keeping me locked in to, it doesn't matter what they change around it, because the change is going to be inevitable as shit evolves. But if I keep the power source locked in, it continues to play itself out. So if I keep you distracted from working on yourself and getting yourself in alignment, all my needs and wants are met. Because the one thing I desire is you never waking up. I desire you never moving past this point. So what am I going to create? Every conduit that can siphon your energy from you on your path. I can create all of these siphons around you that keep you locked on your path. Keep you based on love and hip hop. The best part, they'll do it without even fucking thinking about it. You'll do it without even fucking thinking about it. You'll put yourself in these positions without even thinking about it. You'll be like, damn, I ain't never understood it. Like, yeah, can you put yourself you put your mentality in the positions based on your ego, your identity, what made you. You need the attentions based on even when you're switching from the attention based on the negative to a more positive intent, you're going to be challenged by those negative attentions. Remember, everything you say becomes a conduit. Everything you say came from a thought that you created in the physical. It's just now you're no longer part of that space, or you're stepping away from that space needs to feed. It needs to feed by any means necessary. It's willing to do what you're not willing to do. It's willing to kill you to sustain. It's willing to kill your hopes. It's willing to kill your dreams. It's willing to kill your intentions. It's willing to kill your manifestations. It's willing to kill your knowledge. It's willing to kill all of these things. You're not willing to kill theirs or it. You're not willing to understand in order to kill it. It's willing to understand you to kill you. It will sit back. Think about the aspect of the projects and how the projects were created. Let's put them in a cage and watch them eat each other. Let's sprinkle some cheese and some food stamps in there and watch them eat each other. Let's sprinkle some food in there and watch them eat each other. Let's give them a chance to get upright and mobile. They're following the same shit that you did. They're following the same paradigm that you did. They had to make you think that you were lower than them on that aspect because you're always going to be ahead. But they had to put you in that. Even when people come around you that are draining you, They got to put you in a situation based on intimidation, based on the poor me archetype, based on, they have to put you into one of the 4 categories: the intimidator, the integrator, the integrator. Whoa, there's 4. The interrogator, the intimidator, the poor me, and the aloof. They got to put you in one of these 4 spaces. They got to put you in one of these 4 pins to be fed upon. They got to make you one of those. That's the whole trick. To give you the aspect of free will, or that freedom in the prison. You can't have freedom in the prison. You cannot have freedom in a prison. The only thing you can have down here in the aspect of understanding, trying to have freedom, all you can get is canteen or commissary. All you can do is get some numbers, some money on your books, and a couple of privileges based on the works that you do. They show you that every single time that they show a motherfucker running up and down the court with a ball. They show you that every single fucking time you look at the Super Bowl show and you see motherfuckers singing and dancing. Yeah, they get a little bit more money, but they still singing, dancing. They still singing, dancing, shucking and diving. That's what they doing. That's what they do at this level. That's what they do at this space. That's all they can do. Because in order for them to sustain that light at this space, that limelight, they got to do exactly what they say. Realizing that their power is what power. They realize that their power is what gives that light. That gives the sustain of that light. Give you something to think about on this. Think about the archetype of and this has nothing to do with their voices. Think about a Jasmine Sullivan bust the windows out your car. Think about a Keisha Cole. Think about a Mary J. Blige. Think about the music. Think about the music. Think about the melodies. Think about the trance. Think about the centrist. Think about the siren. Think about the succubus and the incubus. We're going to get into the succubus and the incubus as well. Think about the aspects of this energy and how they get their energy. They made you feel like all the wrong shit that happened to you is that this or that mentality, this or that. Remember, conflict, they leave you locked in constant conflict based on the polarity. So you either in the negative or the positive. Either your man got you a car or your man was fucked some chick in the back of your car. Polarity, cause and effect. No duality. Understanding all these aspects, correspondence. So she had to make you feel like your man did you wrong. I don't care if a chick didn't even have a fucking man. They sung that window touch your cross on. They sung that I want to be. They sung I'm going down. Think about the archetype of the music, what it was said at first. Their hit sing. Think about their first singles was always based upon pain. They gave you pain, then they gave you happiness. And then they had a song talking about they were happy. Then they had another song they were in pain. Keeping you in that constant conflict going back and forth. So you adopted, because you already adopted the subjective thought. So your mindset was always on shit ain't good forever. Your mindset's already stuck on shit ain't good forever. You got to take a little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad to get a whole lot of good. Guys, it's better than a whole bunch of something, little bit of nothing, than a whole bunch of something. Ugh. A whole bunch of nothing, bunch of something for a little bit of nothing, or a little better is better than a little bit of nothing. These aspects were programmed into your mind, into your psyche. So as soon as you get a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge about yourself, you want to go show everybody. You want to wear it as a badge. You unconsciously wearing your shit as a badge based upon ego. So it locks you into that space until it's challenged. So now that it's challenged, are you going to stand on it or are you going to falter away from it? What did you really apply to it to be able to stand on it? The knowledge is everywhere. The knowledge is infinite. You can go on the internet. It's the age of information. So you can get the information from anywhere. But how are you applying it to yourself? What have you created to sustain yourself in your higher self? You can tell you're in a higher space of yourself only when the shit don't fucking bother you. But you have to emerge, you have to submerge yourself into it. You have to embrace what it is. That's the only way you can become the energy, or else you serving the energy. I talked about that last week. Motherfuckers that went from the thought process of not serving something to the inception of not serving something to the serving something else. As long as you serving, you feeding something. As long as you don't understand something in full, it'll always have something over you for you to serve it. Longevity ain't got nothing to do with any of that shit. That's a humanity aspect. Longevity, time, constraint. I worked that job for 13 years. Okay, what did you do for 13 years? Man, I swept the floor for 13 years. And then they got electronic, then they got fucking a motherfucker. At first, they got a motherfucker in there that did it for less. And then they got a machine in there to do it for even less. Because it takes less time to maintain that. It takes less money to maintain that machine other than to maintain you. So what are you upset with? If you didn't sustain on the aspect of suffering and being a victim, you could have become a victor. And in that space, you could have been one of the ones sitting at the table making the decision whether that machine is there or not. And it wouldn't have affected you. But you still would have got stuck and made a decision like, that machine's going to take away a lot of jobs. But it's going to serve us a bigger bonus. Negative and positive. When you're creating your morality, when you're coming into your higher self, you have to create your own level of morality and understanding of what serves you and what doesn't serve you. Why does it serve you and why does it not serve you? What's negative for me may be positive for you, and what's positive for me might be negative for you. But that doesn't mean any one of us are less right because we're in the realm of our consciousness. It's only our ego it's only our ego that has not, if your ego has not been neutralized and been killed off or being killed off, that's going to stop us from having a conversation like, oh, that's what you got from that? Well, I got this, and I read this book. And I didn't read that whole book, but I read this book. Oh, damn, I didn't read that book. What was the name of that book? Now we've built unity based on our intelligence, our ability to have that conversation, our ability to go back and forth in a positive manner to find. So we're feeding from each other in tandem. So we're cycling the knowledge and information. We're cycling energy. We're sharing energy. That sacred knowledge that I have and the sacred knowledge, we're exchanging this energy. Because we're two gods, two goddesses, having an aspect of understanding, because we understand everything has two genders, that masculine and that feminine aspect. So if I'm telling you something and you're taking in and it's nurturing something in you, my masculine is talking to your feminine aspect. Your feminine is talking to my masculine aspect. This is how you cycle the energy. But when you're stuck in this when you're stuck on this either or polarity, stuck on something like, oh, that's gay. The only thing that they were able to tell you that they're in an imbalance. I've said that before. The only thing someone that's in that space, they're at an imbalance, and one's outweighing the other. Until they find their balance, they can't use the energy to full. What's that showing you based on the reflection of yourself? You not understanding it, or you hating it, or having a fear of it, or a lack of understanding of it, why that needs to be there, because it's showing you that you have a lack of balance in your understanding. Because I don't care what they do. I was watching another good show on Netflix's Aquarius, and it was the episode. It was one of the episodes, because it's two cops. The nigga from X-Files, the dude, white boy from X-Files, David Duchovny. He's the veteran detective in the movie, in the show. And it's this young Ricky Key said, that's just wrong. They do it, it's an addiction. They just do it because they know it's wrong and they still do it. It's like they're addicted to it. They're addicted to that attention. And then after he's like, what does it matter? He asked him, he was like, you went to the war you served and I served. Love, hate, it's all the same thing. It's all in whether what they're willing to do for it. Transparency, both sides of the coin. Love and hate are the same thing. Love is the lack thereof. Hate is the lack thereof. Love is the full encompassing. Balance. So when you put yourself into the mindset of not understanding something outside, you allow that to be fed upon you based on the thought form that you created. The thought form that was already created before that. You thought that was put there by mis. No, it's there to learn from. Once you learn how to learn from the shit, you learn how to feed from the energy. But you have to submit yourself to the attributes of the ideal to learn it. The understanding, the imbalances, the behavior, the background. Because until you understand the background of it, the history of it, how it came into being, you can't do anything else outside of it. We get stuck on emotion because we can read every book and we can read every creation story about how the white man was created. But we still oppressed by him. But we created him. Our spiritual intelligence should tell us like, damn, we created it to learn from it because it's a good custodian for knowledge. They'll keep the receipts. They'll keep all the paperwork. I oblige you to go get it back. Because they're doing the same thing that you did. Now they've created robots, artificial intelligence, AI system. They created that. They're now putting that into play. And then they give you every single movie about the robots taking over. One aspect, the robot taking over, the machine that they created is you. That's one aspect of being a robot. The other aspect is their arrogance is going to be their own demise. Your arrogance will be your demise. Your arrogance is what allow motherfuckers to feed upon you. That's like if I knew something, if I had all this information, all this knowledge within me from channels and reading and everything, and I acted aloof or made it like it was hard to get, I wouldn't, whenever I do a lecture, it would be full of intimidation and fear. It would go back and forth talking about people. Gossip here and there, back and forth. This person did this and that person did that. They keep doing this because this is what they're after I've heard what the fuck they do after I've heard about something's behavior after 6 or 7 fucking lectures, what else am I going to learn? Am I there to learn or am I there just to see some entertainment? Something to buy my time. Hoping that Obatala saves me, got me right. So we lose the context and understanding that these energies is what are feeding upon us, and how they keep us fat is based on emotion. Our energy staying in constant motion. As long as our energies and emotion is going each and everywhere, our minds going each and they can lock onto us and keep us where the hell we're at. You can be locked into the position where you at. And you become a reflection of what they do. The same process that they did to your mind is the same process that they do to your mind in order to stay plugged in you and to feed to you is the same aspect of reflection of you going out to go eat some processed food. They know exactly where to go. You know exactly where to go if you want a Whopper. You know exactly where you want to go if you want a Big Mac. You know exactly where to go when you want some pasta from Olive Garden. You know exactly what you're going to get at whatever space you go to. You know, they know if niggas get some money, stimulus, tax refund, paycheck, payday, bonus, they know they're going to go to Walmart. They know they're going to go to Best Buy. They know they're going to go to a used car lot. So they just set the nest. They set the nest. Niggas riding around the 300s. Niggas buying used Chargers. Niggas buying used BMWs. To impress bitches in used leggings. To impress bad bitches in second-hand hair. Set the nest up. They'll come right here and we can just feed from right there. They don't understand how much power they actually have. That's why the boycott doesn't work. Because all you're doing is switching out one addiction for the other. The addiction, based on observational defense, you're looking for something else. So if T.I. or an entertainer get on and say boycott Gucci, that nigga still got a coup. Did anybody go buy his clothing line? Did anybody say, yo, nigga, we putting down Gucci, grab some of that? Did anybody create something? A clothing line to sustain them? This ain't for the weak. This is for the strong. That mindset of where you're going into now, you're going out of this aspect of believing shit and hoping upon some shit that's going to happen and actually stepping in and doing some shit. Speaking the intention that you are, speaking the affirmation or the intention that you're a god or a goddess, eventually you're going to come to the challenge of what a god and a goddess must do. It's not just a fucking pretty title. It's not just like it's just not a glorious title. Just like when you say ancestors, who are your ancestors? I know who my ancestors with. I know who my ancestors are. I know what archetypes of energy they are. I know what archetypes and what what energy is manifested in within them. I know my grandmother was the great mother aspect, the great mother aspect. Since she studied the voodoo rites, I understand that she knew who Urzuli was. I know she knew who Sophia was. I know she knew who Hector was. I know she knows who those people are. So that's the archetype of her energy. So when I read about my grandmother, to empower my grandmother, to invoke the energy from my grandmother, I must speak to her in that aspect. So when I channel her energy, she come through and we have a conversation, I know what that energy is coming from. I know how to access it. And the only way someone can access it from me is if I give them permission. because I'm becoming that energy. I'm not serving that energy. I'm becoming that energy. When you look at this lower level and you think about people always want to say the ancestors are mad or something is mad, you feed that thought form. That thought form's created, and then they can put on TV. You'll argue back and forth, but white people have said it. White people have started saying ancestors kind of like it's all good. I remember back in the day there was a commercial that came on TV, and it came on like late night. And the dude always said, I remember in the commercial, the end thing, he was like, if it's all wood, it's all good. So it lost the validity. It lost the validity in that spark. That it lost its power. It wasn't used anymore. It didn't make sense. So the same aspect when you think about the word ancestors, it don't have the same spark. What ancestors? My ancestors. It gets power when you put my back to it, because it encapsulates and becomes yours. You're becoming it, not serving it. I'm going to serve the ancestors. No, you are becoming, because you are the ancestors. The ancestors are within you. Where do you think all that energy went? And the motherfucker, this takes the aspect of understanding why only certain archetypes or certain beings hit to a certain level of consciousness. Because all that power wasn't meant to be file shared to everybody. When you think about the original catalyst of the Congo rites, you think about Santeria, you think about any of these rites, they were only meant for that group. They put their hierarchy and everything based on their group. So it was never meant for a mass file share. So when you think about the word ancestors, it becomes generic. So if everybody has ancestors, and that's the thought form, and that's the thought form that's created, and white people have got the intellectual like talk. Oh, they say ancestors a lot. Let's make shows about ancestors. Our ancestors. My ancestor, great Anthony V. When you say ancestors, it links into their power, because there that thought form is there. You created the thought form ancestors on the generic base. You didn't become any. You're not absorbing that energy into yourself for your archetype, for your own private cloud for yourself. So now everybody can feed from it. You have to be careful in what the fuck you're saying, because you leave the answer out every time. You give them the answers. You feed them the answers. Take the New Age movement, crystals and beads and chakras, and when that shit first hit, they were talking about chakras and beads and meditation and yoga and all these practices. And the first thing you said was that was white people shit. Them niggas is weird. Not understanding that everything from the mantras to the arts, the symbols, it all derived from your original source of you. So by you saying it's white people shit, okay, cool. You created the thought form as white people shit. So in still thinking that you're oppressed by a white person, you see how that shit comes together when you're based on occupational defense? All that shit comes together. Now you locked in, all that shit still feeding that fucking cloud. All that shit would feed that cloud. I said, my ancestors. And then I started putting in that work to understanding which one of my direct transition descendants that transition, what did they represent in that archetype of deities? And then that became them. That power comes online after I know that's my gatekeeper to that power source. that's going to be my protector at that realm for me, I can move back and forth through the realms. I can walk up the earth to and fro as the devil that I am. I can control my crossroads. I control my faith. I control my crossroads. That's why I took on the archetype, because it was already there. It was already programmed within me. I had to unlock it. I could talk. I could be scared of what? I allowed an entire energy to enter me. What the fuck do I need to be scared of anything out there? I embraced and allowed myself to be possessed by the energy that was of myself, my higher self. If I could allow that, what the hell would I be scared of on the physical plane? I've already experienced death multiple times in getting to this level because I had to become strong enough. I wasn't strong enough at that lower level to do it at this higher level. You can't be who you are. You cannot be who you were indoctrinated as. It won't take you in. It's played out. It's late. It's going to leave you locked down into this position, in this space where you're not going to be able to do anything else because you're locked in this position. I'm a strong black man. I'm more than that. I tip my hat. I'm more than that. I'm a strong black king. I'm more than that. I'm a god. I'm more than that. I'm an occultist. I'm more than that. Every level that you get to, you got to be in the mindset of the level that's next to it or in the next space. That way you're able to read and understand what you're doing at that space. I couldn't read about being a king while I was a king in the king mindset because all I'd be concentrating on is being a king. Everything that I see in front of me. So when I became a king, I had to think as a god. So when I was doing the acts as a king, I was creating as a god everything that I surveyed as a king. That way my mindset and my mentality cannot be fed upon because they weren't at the level my mind was at. So they could do anything they wanted to me as I was in my kinghood and challenge me anything on my kingship, but they could not feed from me. I was in my kingship for a long ass fucking time because I was allowing things outside of me. Itching my damn septum. I allowed things outside of me to feed upon me. I became the appetizer and the entree. I became the appetizer to the motherfuckers that wanted my attention because I felt like I needed attention. Even though I didn't want it, unconsciously, I was like, it feels good saying I don't need it. Now understanding that aloofness, being that less nest of aloofness, playing hard to get, I wasn't needing to play hard to get, I was hard to get. Even I'm hard to attain. The reality of myself, I'm hard to attain. I'm a rarity. These are the mindsets that you got to, these mindsets challenge traditional ways of thought and based on moralism. That morality and that moralism shit will have you going back and forth like, it's bad to be selfish. It's bad to think too good of myself. Because somebody's going to be angry. Their perception of you, how their feelings towards you do not matter to you based on the aspect if you can stand on what the fuck you standing on. The only way that it can affect you is you're speaking from the egotistical side and speaking from arrogance. Arrogance speaks. My energy speaks for me. My energy speaks for me, I don't have to really say anything. I don't really have to speak upon anything or say anything that's in a personal thought process about myself. So I leave all that room in that space to produce light, to share knowledge, to share interpretations, to speak strong. Because it's devoid of ego. There's nothing in it based on ego. So it cannot be at the end of a conversation. Someone can tell me something that pads my ego, so I give them more attention. And that's one of the hardest aspects. A lot of motherfuckers have gotten into the aspect they've gotten stuck based on their fucking ego. So they're not hungry anymore. They're feeding their emotions. The more you feed your emotions based on your needs and wants, the more your stress and worry grows. You'll always stress and worry if you always need and want. Because as long as you need and want, you always want and need. Because you're always going to create the cause and effect, and every effect is going to have a cause in correspondence. And you're always going to be stuck in the conflict of trying to get what you need based off what you want. Here's the aspect of understanding how to break and understand the balance of the tether of needing and wanting. I need for nothing. Anything I need, I create. The only way I can create is if I'm put into a position where I can do what I want to do as I want to do it. That's the aspect coming into your higher self on your left-handed path. I do as I want. Therefore, all my needs are met. I do as I want. Therefore, all my needs are met. In every way, shape, and form, every scenario, in my favor, my needs will be met. So all I have to think about is creating. Just create shit. Since my mindset's not on an instantaneous reward or a validation, and that's what they use the currency for, money for. They use money for validation. They use money for validation. They use trophies for validation. They use all of these things to validate you that you did something. So then you put all your work and all your time and all your effort into doing something for something outside of you to prove to somebody. And when you achieve it, your hunger goes away. Once you achieve it, your hunger goes away. Because you're not hungry anymore. Because now you're feeding the emotion. I could lead a game, eh? But you think they'll still love me the same? I can lead a game. You think they'll still love me the same, eh? Ego. Your work. The only thing that's the ultimate prosperity is knowledge. The more you know of the stuff, the more prosperous. The more knowledge you have of yourself and you apply it, the more prosperous you are. The ultimate abundance is knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more abundance you have in the prosperity of creating what you need to create. Wealth. The ultimate wealth is knowledge. The more wealth, the more knowledge you have, the more abundant you are in knowledge, the more prosperous you are in what you create. Cause and effect. Applying the same formula at a higher level. So insanity at my level is insanity at the lower level is committing to tired paradigms and old rituals to serve instead of becoming the power that these rituals obtain. Learning the knowledge and learning Learning the algorithms of the knowledge that I obtain allows me to take it even further. That's all you were able to do with it? All right, cool. I'm going to take the ball and keep running. As I take that energy, I can keep going forward. Or I stay in that space and I serve this energy. Therefore, I become a servant. Therefore, I come in servitude. Therefore, I get fed upon. At a point in time, once you learn everything about a space, you have one or two choices. Either you stay there and you serve it, or you become a higher conduit to feed from the energy that goes to it. This is on positive and negative. So as me being a teacher, me being a speaker, this is how it works for you. Me being a speaker, me being a teacher, I feed off of sharing. I feed off of the energy that comes from sharing knowledge. As the student feeds off the energy of receiving knowledge. But as that student grows, I naturally grow. So I don't have to keep that student learning from me. Because eventually when the balance shifts, that student is going to go higher than me. The student is to become equal as the teacher. The subjective thought now in aspect, even when we were going through school, as you were going through subjective fucking system of schooling here, I could go back to my old high school and some of my teachers are still there. Teaching the same shit they taught me. Feeding the same shit because that was their passion. You stuck here because you get stuck here because feeding your trauma is your passion. You can get stuck in this space because feeding it is your passion. Feeding this level became your passion. Feeding on the fear became your passion. You went from prisoner to inmate. No, you went from inmate to guard to warden. At this level, that's as high as you can go to. You can go from being the prisoner to the guard to the warden. The prisoner lacks any knowledge of where they're at and what they can do. They get gifts and certain shit. The guard guards away from certain knowledges and divvies out shit to the prisoner. And then the warden controls the guard, what the guard can do compared to what the prisoner can do. So they all locked in the same continuous cipher. You getting locked in a cipher. That's how you keep. That's the way you get fed upon, is being locked in that cipher, being locked in that sphere of of your own delusions, grandeurs, and detriment. By sitting here saying that you're oppressed, you're getting stuck in the same circle of detriment that you could have understood. Until you understand it, you can't understand the power and use it to your own gain. That's how you get fed upon. That's how somebody can come into your life and make you feel good physically, make you feel somewhat good mentally, but they only want you subdued physically. They only want you with a certain amount of information and intellect. They only want you to have intellect. But when it comes to that intelligence, to walk away from it, since you're unconsciously submitted to it, you don't know that you're submitted to it. Since you're unconsciously submitted to this space, you don't understand how to step away from it. Because everything that was created based on your identity in this space now has you locked in. The aspects of humanity and morality and traditionalism got you locked in. The same way you won't speak and stand on your truth is the same decision that your grandmother and your grandmother's grandmother made. Based on survival. They played them. They played them. They played them. Therefore, now you are dumb. You're rising up through the ranks of energy theft, gaining your energy back. So when you think about the aspects, when I break it down, you were in the realm of the poor me aspect. Something was going to save you. Then you stepped into that aloof stage of telling the same redundant bullshit ass stories that were told to you. Then you took on these rank, you take on the rank, and you take on the aspect of understanding some shit, and then you claim a title and say you can't be touched until you get knocked out by that fucking interrogator that constantly judges, talks about other people, makes others feel inferior so they can feel superior by finding faults in others. You do this shit unconsciously when you get into your higher self. That aspect of yelling and talking about you hate Jesus, that thought form, you created a thought form because all the motherfuckers over there that need that shit in their life, that's working, that does it for something for them, and until it play the fuck out, they ain't gonna step away from it. Those are the motherfuckers you'll sit there and talk about. You'll find it cute. That's why you'll go on YouTube and subject yourself to a motherfucker always talking about the white man, always talking about the Christian, always talking about the Muslim, always talking about this person and that person and that person and this person. Because it takes light off of you, then because in that same aspect, you're looking at it and now you're like, well, they did this, this, and this, this, and this. I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to talk about that person, that person, that person, and that person. Damn, look at their views. Look at the attention they get. That attention means they're doing something good based on morality. The morality and tradition. The morality and the fundamental of morality and traditionalism is still in your mind. So now you get to see everything based on that. As long as you keep rising up with those two fucking sights, these sights of those eyes, based on morality and traditionalism, humanity and ego, you'll never rise to your seat to see what you need to see. Because you're going to base everything on what you see in here instead of understanding it here. This doesn't activate until you have understanding. Until you're speaking from the level of understanding. Until you're speaking from your heart, you cannot see the hearts of men. You can't see the hearts of people. So you can't have compassion because you can't see. You have weights on your heart. That burden on your heart allows you not to speak, to understand. You're speaking based on now the intimidator effect. Speaking based on fear-based narratives. The space that you're in is based off fear-based narratives because that's how they feed, based on that adrenochrome. So when you break down things or you hear people break down things on an aspect, it's good to learn from it. But what are you doing? What is it psychologically doing to your psyche? So it's two sides of that same coin. On one side of the coin that's needed because it's sending that joke. On the other side of that coin is that understanding. And that understanding motherfucker, Bobby Hemmett, Phil Valentine, when you listen to the teachers, these niggas didn't give a shit about you. Just like your teacher, the hardest teacher that you went to in school, some of my hardest teachers that happened to me in school were actually the ones that I ended up passing and getting greater grades in. Because they challenged me to my core and they shut down my fucking ego. Coincidentally, no such thing as coincidence. They were all black teachers. They weren't afraid to go past the baritone. Almost all of my teachers had the Joe Clark mindset. They didn't have the Bill Cosby mindset. All my teachers came against that shit based upon anger. That emotion and using that anger in order to take me to the next level. When you think about boxing, we'll use boxing because I did the boxing and mixed martial arts. It was about channeling your energy. It was about channeling and centering your energy. The only way that you can center all of your energy and use all of your energy, all the gates to your energy must be open. So if you're only moving off of anger and that's feeding your center, that's feeding your heart, you must constantly find something that makes you angry in order to react. If something's always making you sad, and that's how you move in your heart for attention to get sad, something always has to make you sad. Nothing can ever make you happy. Nothing can ever make you any other emotion but that emotion that you stilled into your heart. So based on the emotion comes with the feeling. So when you're closed, that observational defense, and you think about, I'm angry. You got to look for shit to make you angry. What fundamentals made you angry before can make you angry now? The one that controls your emotions is your master. Forgot the book. The one that controls your emotions is your master. So if your oppressor, that white man, can make you happy, sad, nervous, angry, sleepy, dopey, and dizzy, the seven dwarfs, you that motherfucker Snow White. It's not until you learn, and the only way to learn how to control your emotions and get your emotions under control is when the situation arises that brings out that energy to bring it into motion, is by submitting to the attributes of what it is in that space. So if I look at a space, I'll take a space like this, for example. So if I'm not used to being around people make me nervous. Based on the old thought process in my mind, couldn't trust people. I couldn't trust myself in that aspect. So in order for me to learn how to actually speak the stuff that I knew, the way that I spoke it, I had to devoid myself I had to let go of the aspect of something getting the approval of them. Once I let go of the aspect of needing approval from somebody to speak and what I was speaking on, that's when I could hold the attention. Because since I wasn't scared to speak it, they weren't scared to hear it. Since I wasn't scared to at first listen and reflect, since I was not scared to hear myself speak, to learn, engage my strengths and weaknesses, they weren't afraid in reflection to listen and question in order to learn. You got to take the step into it. So that broke that barrier. So that energy, my fear became my purpose. See what I'm saying? My fear became my purpose. So since my fear now is my purpose, everything that feeds in fear, everything that used to feed, everything that can feed that thought form of fear, I can feed from. I can feed from the same positivity that the oppressor feeds from. I can feed from that energy. Since I'm above now, since now I'm above that space, that energy now evokes me. It gives me my intelligence. But I have to be willing to step into that space to understand it. Because if I walk into this space, if I walk into a space full of fear, every motherfucker in there can smell fear. Yeah, we've all heard that thought process. Motherfuckers can smell fear. So if I walk into a reggae club and I was scared to fucking death, and I took a shorty there, and I was scared to death, they gonna feed upon my fear. Because I don't know why I keep saying occupation. It becomes a job. It actually does become a job. Because I'm in observational defense, I'm looking for everything based upon my fears. So I'm looking for the nigga that got longer locks than mine. I'm looking for the motherfucker that looked like one of the motherfuckers off of Shatas. I'm looking for these motherfuckers. But in reality, since I'm paying attention to these people over here, this over here, something else can come from right over here and scoop up whatever the fuck I have. Because I'm only can defend one side of myself. I only can defend certain things behind me from beside myself. But when I move in there, if I move into a space on observational offense, I can see the whole space. I can see the motherfucker that's like me. I can see the motherfuckers that are not like me. I can see everything that I need to see and move as I need to move. Because I'm not oppressed by fear. I'm not shut down by fear. I'm not shut down by hate. I'm not shut down by anger. I'm not shut down by any of the emotions because all of my emotions are open and I'm in balance with them. So when I walk into a space, I'm centered. So my energy reflects that. Now, based on these archetypes of how they feed from you, this is how energy vampires work. Energy vampires work based on you being stuck in one catalyst of emotion or the other. So a motherfucker that's always in a negative mood, which emotion are they showing when they're in their negative mood? Are they angry? Are they happy? Are they in that when they're in a negative mood? Because even negative motherfuckers can be happy, but how are they showing it? A motherfucker can be negative and be fucking happy as hell, happy being in negativity, and they'll say all types of negative shit about other people. They'll be the fucking interrogator. What you think about this person? What you think about that person? What you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about them people over there? Man, I don't really fuck with them, man. Yeah, I don't fuck with them either. That same motherfucker go over to them. That same person will go over to them people over there and tell them everything that you just said. Reporting back to another nest. I'm feeding that motherfucker. That vampire is feeding from both sides. You wondering why every time you're around them after y'all having a conversation and it can be on negative shit, you feel weaker. They look stronger. Now they're strong enough to go to the space where your ass didn't. They're strong enough to go to the space where they were siphoning your energy to go to that space. The one that's angry, the one that's sad. They siphon the energy from you, something they need from you, your energy, your power from you to go to another space, to go feed over there. One of the biggest archetypes of energy vampire in the lower level based on being untrained is when you think about the succubus or the incubus. The succubus is the feminine and the incubus is the masculine form of the parasite. So when you think about that aspect of a succubus and you think about you basing yourself off your identity and ego, and you feel good because you got enough intellectual, you got enough credits, and now you got that job and you got that car and you got that house, and now you need somebody on in your mind. You say you need somebody on your arm that's not above you. Cueing the succubus. Give you everything that you want. They give you nothing that you need. Feeding you. Feeding you. Feeding you every positive based on ego, but negative based on your higher self. And since in your mind is already programmed to your ego is not going to give resistance to someone tells you that you're smart. Your ego is not going to give you resistance to someone that tells you that you're handsome, that you're pretty, that you're beautiful. Your ego is not going to defend against it in the way that is needed in this aspect. So in order to challenge yourself to change a position or change something, that's what that succubus would do. So now that succubus is attached to you, sucking you and doing whatever the fuck they want to do on mundane shit, got you feeling like a fucking king. But now you're about to be challenged to go to the level of where the gods do it. That God level energy. Create your own rule type energy. Now you get into this space. But since you didn't do any groundwork to understand that level, when you go to that level, you get torn to fucking shreds. What does she do? She lets it off and goes over to one of them over there in that space. Incubus does the same exact fucking shit. Needing your energy to get to the next level. They need your intelligence to get to the next level. They need your understanding and intellect of certain aspects of this spiritual shit to go to the next level. To build another space in the astral world. Because that's as far as they fucking can go. That's their ceiling. Intellectual is their ceiling. The more that they know, the more they can create an illusion of something that they've done. Make you fear your shit by putting the same name in their own intellectual understanding of it. 5G. 5G and 5D are instantaneous. 5G would be dangerous to anybody. 5D is dangerous to anybody that cannot invoke power from that level and sustain that level. So if I tell you advancing is wrong, over and over and over again, based on the level you don't understand it, guess what's in your mind every time you're about to advance? Man, that might be wrong. I might be leaving people behind. You're going to have to leave motherfuckers behind. Okay, if you ain't leaving, if everybody in your space is at the same exact level, all y'all doing is feeding the same thought form. If everybody at your level is at the same space, the same thought process, the same actions, the same acts, over and over and over again, y'all feeding the same fucking thought form. Y'all feeding the same motherfucking vampires. They just all gonna have different fucking names. You either live long enough to be the fucking hero, or you die. No, you die the hero, or you live long enough to become the villain. I enjoy being the villain. I enjoy being the anti-hero. But now at the level that I'm at, in order for me to sustain the level that I'm at, I have to be the villain. In the way that I understand the aspect of what the villain's the strongest player in the fucking game. Because all that means for me to be the villain is that I took the validity of understanding and took it to a next level. That's why Superman went bad. The whole Superman Batman shit, when Superman went bad and Batman trying to fight him and we gotta stop Superman, was trying to sustain the old morality and the old codes that don't exist at a certain level. When you get to a certain level, that shit don't exist for you. Because as long as you're susceptible to that level, you're able to be fed on that. You're able to be fed upon from that level. You're stuck on that level, and that level has you locked down to where you can't explore anything else. You can't understand anything else. You won't understand anything else. Your psyche's locked down into a certain space. I got to this space. I don't want to go no further. This is good for me. And for some people, that's good. That might be their space. But I'm not speaking to the ones that are, I'm speaking to the ones that are still hungry. Your hunger changed. You went from eating the processed food, and now you're making your own shit. That's who I speak to. The ones that are wanting to get to that level, be in that space, be in the realm. Be on that frequency. But they're the ones that are on that frequency that catch that context. The ones that are tired of staying in a burning house, asking for them to turn the air conditioner on. The ones that have grown tired from saying, can you give me some better food? And all they do is give you bigger scraps. They give you bigger scraps at this level because all they can give you is scraps because all they have is scraps. So being the one that's saying you have the most fucking scraps, that's all you're saying. When motherfuckers sit there and put themselves in the business like, yeah, man, I got the car, I got this, I got the car, I got the rings, I got all this. The ones that say that aspect, that is the richest motherfuckers on the plantation. The most motherfuckers got the most fucking commissary. What do? Oh, I'm a feed you. Yeah, that looks nice. Giving them validation. Feeding a thought form of their validation. So as long as they got their rings, as long as they got their chains, as long as they got all their shit, you got something to look up to. You looking up to the sun. And when we talk about the sun, we're talking about the illusionary sun, which is the sun right there, because we understand that the true sun is the sun source series. So you, in the aspect of them knowing your information and then giving you your information back and making you fight for information, because you're still fighting over ownership of something that you already own. It's something that's already part of you. You can't fight for something that you already own. It's within you. The true aspects of the knowledge of knowing thyself is knowing thyself. You can read the book over and over and over again, but when are you going to apply what you've learned to do something? Or are you just going to fight back and forth with them? They can't go where you're going. So it don't matter how long you fight with them, they'll fight with you forever. They'll keep making guns. They'll make drones. They'll make all this other shit to destroy you physically. They'll do all this other shit to destroy you mentally. That's where the game starts. The game starts in the mental, not in the fucking physical. Your thought process, human thought, the fucking ultimate sense of your fucking soul. I'm going to go fight. I'm going to go get some guns. They make fucking guns. I'm gonna go get some bullets. They make fucking bullets. All right, we're gonna make our own guns. They make the fucking properties to make fucking guns. I make my own bullets, make my own ammunition. You see how redundant it becomes? Since you're gonna one-up them tit for tat to make it work for you, that's you putting your ego in favor? Yeah, now I got the biggest gun. Okay. They got shit that they put in movies right there in front of your fucking face. They got shit they put in movies. They got shit they put on fucking video games right in your motherfucking face. If they can create it, a visual for it, they can pretty much create it in real life. Because they have an intellectual understanding of it starts in the mental. It starts in the mind. It starts as an idea. Putting it together, putting it on paper becomes a plan. Putting some bullet points to it becomes a goal. Putting in the work makes it an achievement. They taught you that shit in fucking school. So they know that part. That's how they succeeded on the intellectual level. The way you're going to defeat them is when you break away from the humanity and ego aspect and that morality, it actually starts tapping into your shit. But you do not get stuck in the subjective thought of you're trying to overcome or become superior because you are already superior. You don't have to fight for power because you are power. You don't have to fight for abundance, prosperity, or wealth because you're already those things. The things that shut you down from getting to that level of understanding things are the burdens on your heart based on where you're getting your power from, where you're getting your pleasure from, and where you're surviving. As long as you're trying to survive at this level, as long as you're trying to thrive at this level, trying to make this shit change at this level, move shit around at this level, you're feeding this level. Remember, every time you're in a certain space, you must submerge yourself to everything in that space. Negative and positive. Does it serve you? Does it not serve you? The only way you get out of that space is once you learn what the fuck you need to learn in that space from the negative and the positive. I learned these motherfuckers got guns. So they can physically kill me. So they can bring death upon me physically. So they feed from that fact that I might fear them shooting me. How do I want them defeating me by shooting me? By understanding that this is a transition. I'm waiting for the transition. So what am I doing while I'm waiting for transition? Instead of worrying about that, because I know that's what they can do, how about I separate myself from the needs and the wants that will have me going into that space? You got, it's the ultimate growing up. The aspect of understanding how you're being fed upon. Oh, shit. The aspect of understanding how you're being fed upon is the first fucking play. You can tell when you're being fed upon. Whenever you're around certain individuals and they do the same shit every fucking day. Ladies, I know how y'all feel when y'all do the little itchy thing. When you're right there in that little spot, I know how y'all feel. But you take that aspect, think about motherfuckers been doing the same shit for years, and you want to know why they won't change. It's a reflection of why you still there, worrying about it. When you change your thinking, when you change the aspects of how you think and how you move and how you dictate your movements in true thought and in the beauty of your thoughts and not taking yourself to the next level. You change your environment. The more you change your thinking, your mental process, and your aptitude of how you engage in your environment changes the behavior of your environment. So your environment at one point in time could have started very, very good, very, very great when you were a child and you were doing certain instances in you had good times and bad times and all the other times in between. But that environment without your power is going to change. It's going to change in the aspect of not physically, because one of the big examples, like I can go to my mom's house right now. I can go to my mom's house the same time as we're in this aspect, the same time next week, next month, next year, next 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 years from now, and the space will still be the same. Her idea of change is buying new furniture, upgrading her television. But there was advancements at that level on that, but it's mundane in the materialistic sense that gives her a sense of accomplishing something. So she's happy, she's good. So as a compassionate God, what do I look like going to tell my mother, this, and this, Jesus ain't real? Destroying her world. She's happy sustaining her world. Compassion is understanding, does it serve me, does it not serve me? Because once you remember, whatever you take on, you must take on in full. So if I go over here, I'm telling these people this, and this, telling them Jesus ain't real and all these things every single day, I must be prepared to be in that space to speak to them every single time about why. I must subject myself to the negative and the cognitive dissonance in understanding of why they can't break away from it. Then I'm gonna become angry because I'm at an imbalance, because I'm feeling off of their anger. I'm feeling off their sadness. I'm feeling off their fear. I'm feeding off of them. But at the same time, they're feeding off of me. They're feeding off of me in the aspect of, for every time I come over there and I give them attention and they feel happy, they feel like somebody's talking to them or giving a damn about them because of the same paradigms that are in my mind about being oppressed under something. That's the only reason I kept going to that space. They gotta come to the light that you've created. It's about them coming to the light that you created, not you going to the light that they still sustained in. The same way that you saw that light off in the distance and jumped into that darkness is the same way they're going to have to do it. Or in tandem. They're going to have to follow that same route or a similar route in equivalent to get to that level. Everybody's shit different. I've always been rebellious. So in order for me to get to the higher levels, I had to submit to the attributes of what rebellion was in order to read what I had to read. Because since I was in a rebellious and a non-restrictive thought process archetype, it made it easier for certain aspects, and then it made it harder for certain other aspects. It made it easier for the aspect of learning something, but it made it harder for the aspect of actually applying it. Two sides, same coin. The things that challenge you, and I did that when I did the breakdown and passing of the Christos, and I broke down the 12 poles, the 6 poles and the 12 polarities, which is your zodiac. I broke it down to the things that are under your chief sign Those things are the things that are going to challenge you based on the other side of the sign. The other sign is connected to your pole. And that's the only way that you're going to be able to go out to understand the other ones. So you're going to have to go through your negative to get to your positive to move around the board. And you got to follow that same motion that way you don't get locked in. What happened with a lot of people that get locked into these spaces get locked into simply being, it feels good. And yeah, it does feel good when you know something. It does feel good when you can say something and you can speak something so strongly. And you can go forward and be like, yeah, I know this and I know a little bit. I know this. I know a little something. It feels good. But the aspect of understanding, just because you know that don't mean there's something else to know. Knowledge is infinite. You're an infinite, multi-dimensional, multifaceted being. $50 Shades of Gray. You're a prismatic force of light. So why would you damn yourself, stop yourself? That's the only way you can say it. That's the only way that word can be a curse word. And no one says it in the right instance. How would you damn yourself or stop yourself from learning more? Because at the end of the day, you're the only one stopping yourself. At the end of the day, you're the only one. You play the victim, you become the prey, and then you create the predator. Because you're the victim in observational defense. You're the victim. In observational offense, you become the predator. What you prey upon is based on your higher aspect or knowledge. The same thing they do based on intellectualism and preying upon things to have control and power. You already have power. You already have control. You already have prosperity. You already have abundance. You already have everything you need. You already have everything you need within you. So anything outside of you can be a reflection of that based on the knowledge that you acquire. So my knowledge of speaking connected with the knowledge, my understanding of how to speak complied with the knowledge that I acquired, bring me into the balance to be able to speak, to share my thoughts and share the interpretations and take the knowledge to the next level as I've applied it. So it gives me the ability to speak like this. The better I get at this, the more I can do more with my creativity, with my light. The more light that I'm able to produce, the higher frequency I'm able to rise to. So I'm not stuck in the aspect. So when you think about entertainers and they get stuck in the aspect of doing one thing so good for so long, then retiring for it, what did they do with it after they retired? Once you retire your humanity, what are you doing with it? You don't yell around and say you're a human all the fucking time. I'm human, I'm human, I'm human. Once you oppress, once you retire the thought form of oppression, are you going to retire and say I was oppressed? Because as long as you're saying this, that's as long as it's going to be done. Or are you actually going to look at the internal mechanism of why you were able to be oppressed? These aspects of understanding for ourselves help us invoke into our higher power self, into the higher powers of ourselves. Because we start to read these things, when you start reading the text that come to you, that stick out to you and resonate with you, you no longer read it as an adult reading a book that knows everything. You no longer read it as you know everything. You read it as a child. You read it as a sense of becoming into that day or becoming into that moment. So when I read a book, I was reading 100 symbols yesterday, 100 symbols, and reading my other book the other day. As I'm reading my books, I'm having a deeper understanding in the context of what I'm reading. So I'm like, damn, I read this and that changed because I'm learning how to apply it in real time. One good book that I always put out for people is The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. And it teaches you the breathing exercises. It teaches you how to open yourself up it teaches you how to open yourself up. Another book called Psychastria. No. Yeah, Psychastria. I think it's Psychastria by Frank Rudolph, the black guy that taught all the presidents sex magic. And when he talks about submitting yourself, no. Psychastria, yeah, Psychastria is the one book. The other book is Psychastria, but it's spelled with a C. But both books, until I was able to understand, I read those books at first and gathering the information, like, damn, that book, it gave me one interpretation of understanding. Then I read the book, The Way of the Superior Man. So when I went back to Psychastria, when it talks about submitting myself to the attributes of the ideal, I can automatically take the information that I got from David Deida, that The Way of the Superior Man book, and opening myself up so I can become that light body. So I can become open to creating a light body in front of me or an avatar in front of me that can make my moves for me. As I sit here and I just sit back and learn. And once you get better at making the spell, this is how you teleport. This is how you become omnipresent on this level. This is how you tell motherfuckers you a god. So I can tell motherfuckers I'm a god because I put together a podcast. So as my podcast grows, my voice grows, and my perception of my voice and my thoughts based on my podcast becomes my omnipresence. Me doing the lectures on YouTube, as the views hit, my now face along with my voice and what I'm saying becomes omnipresent in multiple places. Now I'm in multiple places at once. So they can't feed from me. And then once you start doing this, once you start taking yourself out of the level of being being a co-pilot and actually being the pilot and moving yourself and navigating yourself, that's when the things come out that are always going to challenge you based on what you need to do next. So if you're always in a position around people, like, I don't really like people, but I love my gods and goddesses. I love my titans. I love my witches. I love everybody on my frequency because they're not human. They've accepted that they ain't human. They something more. They might not know what they are yet, but they're in the realm of the knowledge. So I love them. I love yours. That's how I do that. So separate myself from humanity when I speak. It's not going to be at the tone of 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4. It's going to come at you at a harder direct. When I speak, it's going to come at you at a harder level because I'm challenging your ego. I'm challenging your ego's resistance. Because if I can't challenge your ego's resistance on what it knows and what it thinks it knows and what it believes, then there's no point of me actually stepping in front of you. You're not supposed to be there. You locked down in a space that don't even exist to me. That ain't somewhere I need to be. I know how to move forward. And removing yourself from that fear is how you allow yourself. And removing yourself from the fear archetype allows you not to be fed upon. That's why the biggest thing for me is the thing saying you're oppressed, and saying that the white man's the devil and all these things, you're saying all these aspects, all you're doing is locking yourself down into a thought form to be fed from. Because as long as you have attention on the white man being the devil, and you keep saying why the white man's evil and why the white man's this and the white man's all these shits, this motherfucker has you in a space where he can feed from you. He still can bother you. It's just like you think about whack-ass niggas. Whack-ass niggas can still bother you because something in you still attracts whack-ass niggas. What is it? The thought. The shit still attracted to you because there's still a thought in your mind. The act of not caring. I can truly care less about anything at this level because it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing and everything to do with me. That keeps you standing on your square. That keeps you put this thought process and this paradigm keep you moving forward and not going back. I know what's at the end. I know what's at the end. I know what's at the end. I already know what's at the end. My transition. Depending on how I build my end is dependent upon my thoughts of what the end is. How do I build my perfect ending at this level? How do I kill off myself at this level? What have I perfected at this level? That's when it comes into learning. That's when it comes into the aspect of learning something every single day. How do I learn from this level that I'm at? What am I learning from this level? What am I doing at this level? How am I moving at this level? What did I learn? Instead of me getting stuck in the mindset, because people get stuck in this mindset of, I know everything here, I can stay here now. You go from predator to prey. When you lose your hunger, you become prey. Your appetite changes. You can't keep feeding yourself the same processed shit. It don't work. It doesn't work that way. If I was aspects of my older selves, the way they ate, the way they talked, the way they spoke, the way they did things, there was positives and negatives. In me stepping forward, I understood that there were certain positives to what they were saying. The positives I took on because I understood them, and the negatives I unlocked why it was negative at that time. Why didn't I speak? Why didn't I do certain things? Why was I overbearing at certain points in time? Why didn't I do this? Why wasn't I emotional? Why wasn't I emotional here? Where was my balances at? You got to go through these balances and understanding those balances, weighing them out, weighing your heart against the feather. The only way to weigh your heart against the feather and it balances out with the feathers, once you understand, is not a burden of what you are now. Everything that you are going to do, everything that you are doing, the only fault in what happened to you is you not learning from it and using it to your advantage. And that's one of the biggest things that I teach in when I do a lot of my consultations, is I'm taking you out of the observational defense and putting you in observational offense. I'm taking you out of the seat of the victim and putting you to the seat. I'm taking you out of the seat of the victim. I'm putting you to the seat of the victor. And it's a process because it's a lot of shadow work. It's a lot of therapy before you can even get into the intelligence part or the magics or the higher realms of understanding of certain things. You got to understand shit at this level. Because the shit at this level is the shit that's going to hold you back. That's why you can have certain motherfuckers that look for the negative. They look for the negative and all the positive. At this level, they'll say, me, I practice black magic. At this level, their level of understanding, based on their perception, if they were able to do it, they tell you exactly what they would do. Based on this level being a level of exploitation and addiction, they'll exploit your anger in order to make it work. That's why they'll do a black exploitation film, such as Sugar Hill, and they'll have the shit say, "How deep is your anger?" And she'll go around killing a bunch of white people. But we got to understand and decoding and take it to the higher level. In order for her to have a hatred and have these motherfuckers use that energy, she had to understand something about them. So her hatred, the way that she was able to manipulate the spell, was based on her understanding of where they were at. So she used it to her advantage. We're about using it to our advantage on our higher self, not getting stuck down here on the level of, I'm going to go hex somebody. They already hexed them fucking selves. Let them do the work. You already got the information. Let them do the work. Let them hurt themselves. Let them put themselves in a position for you to feed upon. Becoming the ultimate predator. That's all you can do with love. Become the predator. Become the, what is it? Yeah, become the alpha predator. I'm an alpha predator. But my alpha predator is coming from the higher sense, so all I want is the knowledge. It says I'm devoid of the ego in the humanity aspect. I'm not in tandem to the fear of gaining higher knowledge. Because I understand that in me using the higher knowledge, it's already me. When you think about Adolf Hitler and all the stories they talk about, and then they put it in all the Avengers movies, basically, the whole Marvel franchise. When they were talking about somebody having too much power, and they talked about Adolf Hitler, and then you look at some of the things when they talk about the Nazis, and the Nazis they were like practicing the occult in dark magic and black magic and the occult. They just had a deeper aspect of the mind. So if I give you the projection of it's evil, it's bad, it's evil, it's used for bad intentions, not only will you feed my aspect of it, or my thoughts of it, you might feed that space of, oh, it's going to be bad automatically. You shut down yourself from actually embracing it for what it truly is, based on the negative and positive aspect. So you go from feeding yourself to feeding somebody. You go from that one ability to feed yourself to go feed others. You go from the aspect of feeding yourself to feeding others. Because now you have to take on the aspect that they took on, their intellectual understanding. Pray to a Botala. Pray to this Patreon of deities, and you'll get this power. But since it wasn't meant to be file shared, you gave them a different kind. Remember, you give whatever you give a thought to, you give a consciousness. So if I give the consciousness to Shango that he's mad, or the ancestors are mad, then that thought form creates them being mad at me. So everything that I'm looking, since now I switch myself back in observational defense, now my mind's shut down into they're always going to be angry at me, so I got to do this, this, and this. I have to serve this, this, and this. I got to go get water for this. I got to get blood for this. I got to go do this for this. That's what they're stuck in based on conflict. That fucking, when they broke the levees in Katrina and they fed Baron Samni, and they took that archetype of Indian Baron Samni and Papa Legba and took that energy, and they fed them motherfuckers all them sacrifices, all them fucking souls, they got to continue feeding them motherfucking souls to him. Because they're serving it. So they'll never get true power because they're serving. On the other hand, for us, we can become that. So when I took on my voodoo rights through my grandmother, and Papa Legba and Baron Sami came through to me, I became those energies. I was already controlling crossroads, decisions in my life. So I took on that power. So now when they feed that thought form that is Baron Sami based on that energy, based on them serving that archetype, that energy, everything they do based on feeding something or sacrificing some type of energy, I automatically can receive it. So I get stronger as they let them do the sacrifice. But that's taking myself out of that morality aspect. Man, they're killing our people. They leaving here. They gone. They leaving from here. They ain't here no more. They gone. They transition. Whether they come back or not, based on whatever they did, but other than that, they got free. I'm trying to be like them when I grow up. They transition. I learn how to use that power. That's what it's about becoming. You're becoming that energy. That whole thing when the marathon continues, when St. Nip passed, I took that shit and ran with it. The marathon continues, and I built everything that I'm building now. Taking apart, siphoning it from that energy. Not getting stuck in the emotional aspects of, oh my God, they killed Nipsey and da-da-da. That happened. I didn't know this man personally. I just knew he came out with a bomb ass fucking album on my fucking death day. I know on the same day that I was able observational offense, I looked at everything that happened. The same day they dropped it, the same day his album dropped, the same fucking day the fucking Black Panther came out. They talking about ancestors in Black Panther. And then Nip transitions, and then his mom get over there talking about the ancestors and speaking to them. Took all that power in. You're not going to get anything at this level based on what you think you're going to get. You're not going to get anything of evolved sense on this level other than what you're already getting. You want some streets named after you? Be my guest. You want a bank named after you? You want some money in a bank? Be my guest. But as long as you're thinking about this level, in the aspect of trying to change things on this level, trying to move an immovable force, an immovable object against an unmovable force, you're going to be stuck feeding something. Something's always going to trigger you. Something's always going to make your emotions unstable. Something's always going to get to you at this level. Only because you're stuck at this level. And you don't see anything else. So you're not confident enough in yourself to go to the next level. Ain't nothing scary than being locked in a room with yourself. The only thing scary to being locked in a room with yourself is creating an environment of yourself on different levels based on perception. It's the only thing worse than being locked in a room with yourself is when you create perceptions of yourself and everybody else, trying to control their perceptions, trying to control their ideas about you. That's the only thing more dangerous. Only thing more dangerous is that. So what are you going to do? Allow yourself to be fed on by everybody else's emotional anguishes, everybody else's emotional thoughts? Because that's all they're feeding on is your emotional thoughts. You're wanting to be there. You're wanting to need something. You're wanting to sustain a certain space. This is what they feed at this level. All you can do is get yourself in order so they see you getting yourself in order and then they make their decision. But if your mindset's still stuck in the fundamentals of their mindset, they'll say, let's get the aspect of, he's still in there somewhere. What are they willing to do to pull out? The only way they can pull something out of you is if they pull something out of themselves. The only way someone can go as deep and pull something out of you, they have to be willing to go deep within themselves and understand that going into that space is going to involve them challenging everything that keeps them from not doing it. The only thing that challenges me now is acquiring more knowledge and how I attain more knowledge. That's the only thing that feeds me and fulfills me to the full. Therefore, in my mindset, everything that I create around me is doing that same thing. It's challenging me to create. It's challenging me to go deeper. It's challenging me to go further. Everything around you conscious. The idea is switching from the unconscious state to the conscious state. You're switching from unconscious to become conscious in your moves. I've switched from being unconscious of my moves to becoming conscious of my moves. Therefore, every time I move, my defense is already in play. Since I've already reprogrammed, killed my ego rolls back up. The ego doesn't truly die. It becomes died, it becomes neutralized. You have control over it. You have control over the dead, but you actually have control over the living because your ego lives. But it has to die first. Just like you got to die multiple times to get to the next level, the ego is going to have to die for you to be able to have control of it. But your ego is always trying to outlive an identity. That's that major key. Your ego is always trying to outlive based on identity. So once it gets to a certain space and you're comfortable in that space, you got to make it uncomfortable again. That's where the challenging becomes infinite. You got to create a different subterranean for your ego to have to battle against to even get information to your subconscious. You got to keep creating. That's when you get into the aspect when you create the vision, when you go into your astral room, you create your happy space. You create the space when you're angry. You create the space when you're sad. You create the space for all your emotions to be in tandem so they're all linked to each other because they're all linked off one singular thought. I'm creating this space for me to be happy. Therefore, this thought is now when I'm happy, I'm in this space. When I'm sad, I'm in this space. When I'm angry, I'm in this space. When I'm scared, I'm in this space. But now they're all connected together through one singular thought, and that's your thought. That's how you grow balance into these spaces. And that's one of the things that I teach. But you got to open yourself up to understanding why you were angry in the first place, why you were in emotional distress in the first place. Major keys. Because until then, you're just going to be food. Just like the cow was raised up to be a burger or a steak, and the chicken's raised up to be wings and chicken breast at Popeyes, and make Popeyes chicken sandwiches. And the fish is done to do what it's supposed to do. Everything at this level has a certain point in play what it's supposed to be doing at this level. The only thing that will never fit in this level is you. Because you're of this space, you're not a part of this space. You're of it, but you're not a part of it. Your ego will have you thinking you're a part of it. You're a part of every problem. You're a part of every solution. No, you are the essence of every problem and every solution. But it's going from positive and negative, not getting bad. Your ego has you stuck based on morality. If I do this, then I'm going to be bad to these people, and people are going to hate me over here, but people are going to love me over here. So what balance are you trying to balance out? I ain't trying to be liked or hated by anybody. For the same reason motherfuckers like me is the same reason motherfuckers hate me. That's my balance. I'm negative to some, positive to some. The same reason I'm positive to others, I'm negative to the others. That's my balance. That keeps me rising. Devoid of the aspect of emotion or fear that somebody's not going to like me. Devoid of the aspect of fear that somebody's going to try to be over to the aspect of external based on their internal mechanisms is going to try to be more than I need them to be to sustain me in that space. So when that happens in that mentality, when you have certain aspects inside of you that you can become the monster under the bed for what you think that you're actually doing good for based upon your ego, based on what you're used to doing. Everything that I was used to doing went out the window because I understand how to sustain what I was doing in the reality of what I sustain. I can sustain myself. So I'm not looking for anything. I don't have no wants or need for anything to sustain me. So when something does come that can add to my sustain, or to my sustain, I'm not surviving anymore. I can handle my own survival. So when it comes to something coming into my space that can aid me in sustaining, I don't have to submit to it in the aspect of being lower. I submit to it my light body. The attributes of what I need to be when I'm there. So it makes it easier for me to move around and be omnipresent. So I can be everywhere at every time. I can be everything I need to be. The next thing outside of that, when I do the sessions, is taking you out of the aspect of time. Time is a horrible ass thing because time will have you locked in. That's how you get old. Your body doesn't die based upon time. It's based upon what you put into it. Your body dies based on what you put into it. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. That's how your body ages. Knowledge is infinite. Every time I hear something is new. If it isn't new, I find a new interpretation of it. So eternal youth. Eternal youth. So in the physical form, I remain looking young because I'm fulfilled in the knowledge of being prosperous and abundant. I'm now fulfilled in this level. So I don't have to worry about the outer aspects or physical aspects because that's already sustained. It's a sustained play for me. So I don't have to worry about being fed by somebody saying, well, if you do this, you get this. I think about that. I do what I want. I'm not intimidated. The intimidator can't faze me. The interrogator, the best motherfucker can come and ask me a bunch of motherfucking questions, and all it's going to do is, okay, cool, you asked me a couple questions, cool. What's your next question? What's your next answer? What's your next question? I can answer those questions based on the best of my ability because I acquired the knowledge. So it can't be fed in that realm. So that theft can't happen. This is how you defeat the energy vampire. This is how you defeat the empire. You got to get dark. You got to understand your darkness so they can't use your darkness against you. You got to break the shield. You got to break the seal of oppression. You got to break these seals or you're not going to do anything. While we winding down, this is that question and answer period. But just like I do on the podcast, if you're not into the podcast, God Hour Podcast, new episode every Tuesday at 6 a.m. I dropped a new episode. New mantras and everything in there. I moved some stuff around on this week's episode. This week's episode was morality and traditionalism. That was this week's episode. But every Tuesday at 6 a.m., I dropped a new episode. This Sunday's Sunday service is going to be on pain and pleasure. That's that Sunday's Sunday service, Papa Lucy on Facebook. Yesterday was a very crowning achievement for the God Occult Alchemist entity. I became an official entity and I dropped the website. So I can finally, I'm still going to say it, but I can finally say for all information based on my services is all in, everything that has been acquired is now it's in the description of this lecture. Everything from my website to the website for my services, the services for spiritual consultations, spiritual life coaching, all those aspects, GODicalAlchemistLLC.com. My clothing, the Occult Alchemy store is open. My Occult Alchemy by Shopify.com. My email addresses are the same. I added one more email address because the setcarlonegus at gmail.com. That's more for the business aspects, bookings, and the queries. And the Papa Lucy 666 at gmail.com. That's more for personal questions, comments, things you want to get off your like things you want to talk about. Like we build that dialogue off of. The number's I didn't put the number in there, but the number's 910-777-7708. 910-777-7708. You also can call that number, leave a message, start building the consultation that way. And of course, my Cash App link is $Lucifer Somni. That's in the link. Love, donate, like the love on that. Show the love, show the support for the content that I'm creating, the knowledge that we putting out, so I can continue going forward on that. And yeah, I've created bodies of light. So it's like, yeah, I've created bodies of light for myself to go forward. So I don't have to worry about, and it's not based upon the financial. When you get stuck in the aspect of money or doing it for money, your shit becomes watered down. I've seen a lot of content over the years, and I can see who stayed strong in knowledge and putting out the information. And then I can see the ones that feed the cycle of love and hip hop, reality TV, feed the aspect of in fear, feed the aspects of these lower shits. And it's not sad for me. It was like, I didn't look at it like, oh, that's what I'm not supposed to do. And over the last year, I've been rocking with new, old people, and the newer initiates, everybody that's coming in, and they vibing and keep rocking on the frequency. And that's what I look for is you ride on the frequency, you ride on the frequency. You're not riding on the frequency, you're riding on the frequency. That's not for me to change. That's not for me to make you do something. No, that's not for me. My aspect is to put it out there. If you like what you're getting, and it bring you to it shifts your alignment of what you are doing, it shifts you, it resonates with you and takes you to that next level, it challenges you, welcome to the game. But if it isn't, then it ain't for you. I'm not saying it ain't for you now, you just got some more work to do. Or you may choose another path. That's not on me. What works for me may not work for you. All I can tell you is the methodology, and this is the intention. I set this intention to do this, this, and this. This was the intention I set based on what I wanted, what I desired, what I wanted to create. And this is what I got based on using it. Your intention ain't pure. You still got shit hidden in the dark, then your intention ain't going to be pure. That's how it works. But yeah. Energy vampires, bloodsuckers, leeches, up to jinns and niggas that change. That was another thing we'll talk about. Motherfuckers that change after feeding off of your energy. That's what I want to talk about. Motherfuckers that feed based off of your energy. If your energy, if they're not used to said energy, or said power of said energy, when they feed upon yours, it changes them in challenging their ego. So they become exactly what they're supposed to become based off of your energy, based off of their intention. Their behavior changes. They change and do everything they're supposed to do based off whatever conduits were in your energy for them to feed upon. So insecurities, fears. This is the main important thing when you translate, because that sacred energy exchange, at the most part, and why your energy is so sacred is understanding why it's so sacred. So if you have an insecurity or an imbalance within you, when your energy is fed upon, that imbalance, depending on what it is, if your imbalance is strong, then when it's fed upon into the other, it connects to the weaker or the stronger negative imbalance within them. Because your positive becomes their negative, your negative becomes the polarities change. So then they're able to feed. So then that breaks down into the thought process of ain't shit niggas and ain't shit bitches. Bad bitches and ain't shit niggas. Those aspects come into play. And if that's a thought process on your mind, when you're submitting yourself into that exchange of your energy, remember, every time you agree to an argument, you're exchanging energy, they can become stronger because you don't understand how that resonates with you, the internal mechanisms of you. Yeah, those internal mechanisms, they're not fun. The internal mechanisms that are within inside you, insecurities, doubts, all the little aspects, those are the things that they feed upon. That's how they tether to you. That's how they can tether to you without you knowing. That's the better way to say it. That's how they can attach to you that's how they can attach to you based on you not knowing how to deal with it. So even if you ain't used to being fucking happy, you ain't used to being open in observational offense to read shit, the strangest shit can fucking come at you. But it's all in how you deal with it. I don't like being touched. I don't allow everybody to touch me. I don't allow motherfuckers to take pictures of me. I'm not that type of that energy, because I understand the aspects of energy, like it encapsulates a picture, encapsulates your energy. So I'm very, very aware when I take a picture, who takes the picture. I'm very wary. I'm very thought driven on who touches me. Since I'm an observational offense, so that basically, like, I can like view, for example, it's always weird to me. Like, I remember when I was working, and y'all can throw your questions in there if y'all have questions. I remember when I was working, and I remember this white girl like always, every time she walked by me, she touched, like, in some way, shape, or form, she had to come in contact with me. And I noticed every time that she did it, my mood would be like, since I'm already in the aspect of I don't like motherfuckers touching me, I would automatically react in that thought. So the thought would be in my head. So like I would feed the thoughtful. So the attention, whether it's negative or positive, no matter if it's negative or positive, that's what they connect to. That's how they connect to you. That's how they feed. That's how they connect to you. Because something within inside you is sustenance. It's just your energy that's sustenance. It don't matter if it come out negative or positive to them. It's sustenance to them. Feed their spirit because lack of their soul. Or lack of understanding of their soul. If I can get love from you, why I gotta love myself? If I can get hatred from you, why I gotta hate myself? That's how they win. That's how everything outside you is gonna win. Because you give them their reasons to exist. You've already given them their papers, their script. They're gonna play it out. And until you learn from it, you can't change seasons. I call it reverse inner engineering. Reversing the energy, reverse engineering the energy. Every season is a winning season because you have to understand that the losses all are times to learn. And the learning aspect is what you apply to your victories. So every season is a learning season. So every season is a winning season. So you win in every season. You just got to take away that ego and you'll be able to see it. And then once you're in observational offense of that, you can see the motherfuckers that when you say certain shit to them and they sound dry, of course, that's what you're supposed to do. When you take the aspect of understanding, you learn, like the aspect of you learning something, you get to learn exactly what somebody is every single moment of the day. You understand how that energy can provoke you, and you understand how that energy can provoke you to evoke old or invoke new. Evoke old or invoke new. That one aspect by itself changes the entire perspective of how you look at anything anyway. But you got to learn. Once you learn what you need to learn from that space, it's time to let go of that space. Because you go from being a victim to being prey. The victim is stuck encapsulated in the conflict. The prey knows it can be a victim, but it has to understand that as long as I avoid certain aspects, I avoid the predator. But the predator has subjected itself to understanding that it can be prey based upon what it feeds, based on what it's feeding upon. So being a predator, you've learned how not to be eaten. Being the apex, it's not alpha, it's the apex predator. You learn that as long as you're growing in your knowledge and advancing and evolving, the regular predator, the prey, and the victim, they all can be siphoned from. in one breath. You're going from being the conduit for how they live and sustain to the door or the choice they need to make. No, let's switch that around. And you flip that around. You're going from being the conduit to how they survive to the conduit or the door to them transitioning to learning how to sustain and maintain. With or without you, they're gonna learn. You ain't gotta be there to find out. That's the brilliant part. That's what we gotta get out of. The humanity aspect of being there to see them change. What do you mean by how? Formulate that into a question, because I just said a lot of stuff. How do you shift? How are they a conduit? How they're a conduit? You mean the victim, how they're a conduit? The victim's the conduit to sustaining your survival of your identity. Remember, we're going from conduit. We're going from the conduit aspect of survival to sustaining. So when you look at a victim or a person that plays that victim role, that poor me role, they're always going to be in an aspect of something. They're always going to have, even when they're speaking about their problems, remember, there's no solution. They don't have a true solution. The solution's always based, even when they do have a solution, it's half-sided. Like they'll put an aspect like, let me think. Damn, I ain't dealt with victims in so long. Take the aspect of wanting a better job. Take the aspect of wanting a better job or wanting advancement in their job. A victim conduit will look at everything negative about getting a job or taking themselves to the next level. They'll look at every negative aspect of what they will have to sacrifice in order to get to that next level. The conduit of a victim archetype, they're always looking at aspects and fear-based of what it means to go to the next level. They literally look for reasons not to advance. Be able to do this. I won't be able to go out. I won't be able to drink with my friends. If I'm supervising my friends, I can't hang out with my friends because I can't fraternize with my friends. If I stop drinking, that means everything, like take an aspect from like drinking or getting high or like finding an outside release to escape from reality. They'll always look for something. Once they step out of that outside release of reality that they've created, they have to find something. Once they understand that their reality is an illusion, they go into that lost phase. They go into that prey phase. Oh my God, I'm out here. If I don't drink, then I don't have the excuse of whatever I say or whatever I do. If I'm not getting high, I don't have the excuse to say whatever I say or do. So now they become prey. So what they become preyed upon is that aspect of the predator that will lead them back into what they need. So when you say the conduit of a predator, let's take that context of a sexual predator. A sexual predator needs control. A sexual predator needs control. So since a sexual predator needs control, What does it need control over? It needs control over a victim or prey. How does it find prey? Prey, in this aspect, the prey or the victim has certain aspects that makes it a victim. It needs money. It needs cause. It needs jewelry. It needs something outside of it to validate its existence as being a victim. So what does the predator do? The predator puts itself into the aspect of, you need money? You need a place to stay? You need a ride? So since it's mastered the aspect, the predator masters aspects into receiving something. It's mastered the aspects into being in an environment where it can feed upon what's there. So if I have a job, I got a good ass job, or I got the good ass job, I got the nice crib, I got the nice house, I can prey upon anybody that doesn't have these aspects. That's that succubus incubus energy. The apex predator doesn't need to be in that environment. The apex predator can adapt to any environment. So that sexual predator needs to stay in a certain environment to get a certain type of prey. The apex predator doesn't need to be in any type of environment because it knows it can feed from anything. So me being an apex predator, I don't have to be, me being a part of the apex predator archetype, I understand that I can feed from anything because I created the streams that feed me. I don't need anything. I don't need anything outside of me to feed me in the aspect of I can create what I need to sustain. A predator needs survive. A predator is always in survival mode. I forgot her name, but she says it. I forgot her name. The queen that said that. But a predator is always in survival mode. I need to survive. How do you survive? By sustaining an environment or sustaining the environment and manipulating it to your own gain. An apex predator doesn't matter what environment I'm in, I'm going to adapt. We have to get into the aspect of becoming an apex predator at our higher self in the human form, in this physical form. Because since I'm in the physical form, I'm an apex predator in my physical form, observational offense. So everything that I create, everything that I survey in the king mentality and my crowning mentality is based upon everything I create in my God mentality. So I can adapt to any position. So anything that comes in, I can feed on. Anything that comes into my space, I don't have to worry about being fed because I know it's going to feed me. Not only do I know how to sustain my hunger, I know how to curb. Since I know how to sustain and I'm not surviving, I don't have to look for the proverbial scraps to feed. I don't need proverbial scraps to feed. So whatever comes in, I know it's going to do something for me. I can turn that into something else. Our ancestors in that aspect, your ancestors, they knew how to do that in that space. That's how they sustain that space. So when you go back, when thinking about going back earlier, when I was talking about maintaining their traditions and their cultures under the right there in plain sight, that's how they took the saints for these Patreons. Use the book of Psalms and their Patreons. Use what was there to sustain and become the apex in that space. They did it unconsciously. So when it came time to go to the next level, the fundamentals got lost. The understanding of it got lost because it was based on survival and not on sustaining. So we have to get into the aspect of sustaining what we're learning by applying it. That's how you create at the higher level the new traditions. That's how traditions get created, based on sustaining on what it is at that level. Glad it answered your question. But questions, comments, anything else? Anybody got any other questions? Liking that. I love when I get a question. When someone asks one question, another person asks another question, and trust another question and answer. That's how we build. Build and destroy. You got to destroy the doubt to build. Yeah. Destroy the unknown to build the known. No problem. No problem. Look in the comments. Look in the description box for all the other insights. I'm doing I'm going back to the God Thought blog spot. So if you have not, like when you see my go on the site, I'm working on the app now. I'm gonna have an app. But when you go on the site and you sign up or you look on there, you can actually subscribe to my blog and all the God Thoughts I put on there. So every day, every other day, because I'm doing a lot of shit, I put a thought up there. You can leave your comments, leave a discussion. You can chat, do everything you want to do from the site and soon from the app. But yeah, whatever you're doing, be the best at it. Even if you hate it, absorb everything you can from that to move forward. That's the only way that you can advance from any level in any space. You got to be at that space. You got to learn everything from that space. Because if you don't, you're going to stay yourself locked into some shit. You'll be the predator. You'll be the prey. You'll be the victim. It's about becoming the apex. You can't beat them at their own game. You submit to the attributes of joining it to learn it, to use it to your advantage. But as always, I'll see y'all next Friday. Y'all hear from me next Tuesday. And to those on Facebook, you'll see me on Sunday. I still haven't thought enough for Instagram yet. But share, subscribe, let the knowledge do what it's supposed to do. I love you. We love us. I'll share. Oops.